We would be saying in normal circumstances these are good bowling conditions, but when you add the nature of the pitch, they are very, very good bowling conditions. First up on this second and probably final morning of this match, being played on a pitch which has certainly attracted attention and became extremely difficult to bat on once the floodlights came on yesterday. The match situation is that Lancashire in their second innings have recovered actually somewhat to 25 for 6 with George Bell on debut, an impressive runner ball 18, Hartley with him on 2, and these two have established a lead of 49 for Lancashire, which under normal circumstances we would say is of not particularly great use, but I think there's a feeling that if Lancashire can get another 50 runs or so here, they're very much in the game. And one little marker to look for is Lancashire's previous lowest score against Essex, which is 70, and if they were to avoid setting a new record for that here today, you would think that with a lead therefore over 110, Essex would be having to get more runs than they got in their first innings, and Lancashire would quietly fancy their chances. We don't think this pitch is likely to be one that flattens out. Glenn Chappell, the Lancashire coach, certainly not happy with it and saying that they just felt they had to bat because they feared it could get worse, which explains Lancashire's decision at the toss yesterday. I suspect it may not be particularly relevant one way or another, but the toss decision, because the pitch is likely to stay much the same throughout the game, and of course with the floodlights on it's certainly been more difficult to bat yesterday evening. It remains to see if it's as difficult this morning, but we will start under lights. And Lancashire, well, got to try and find a way of prolonging this innings as long as possible. We were just saying off air that if this game goes well into the afternoon, the longer it goes, the more you've got to fancy Lancashire to win the match. But if it all ends this morning, which it could do, or just after lunch, then you suspect that Essex are going to be the likely winners. So Sam Cook is going to bowl from the Hayes close end, and he'll bowl to the impressive George Bell, who plays that up towards mid-off. Actually, we've just been talking about a near namesake of George Bell, who basically involved in the Cricketer magazine these days, George de Bell, and his information, of the on the possible changes coming up that the counties are going to vote on for the 2024 structure of the season, none of which made very palatable viewing. So here's Cook, and that's played nicely by Bell, just playing the ball down off his pads down towards fine leg for a single, taking the score up to 26 for 6. And as I say, that's an improvement for Lancashire, who were 4 for 5 at one point yesterday, 7 for 6. At one point people were scurrying around, and memories of the 14 all out, of course, in 83 here for Surrey, and the 20 all out, of course, for Essex, against a Glenn Chappell inspired Lancashire almost a decade ago. At one point I was even looking up to see if they might beat the 6 made by the Bees against England in 1810, which is the lowest first class score, but they safely got past that. Cook bowls, and that's played by Hartley up towards cover, and there's no run, beating the lowest championship score of 12. And as I say, Lancashire just got a few extra runs last night, as Paul Newton was noting on commentary, when Essex basically were given the option of turning to spin or the day's play being terminated, and they chose to go with the spin, and that just was a slight pressure release for Lancashire at the end of the day. It means the scoreboard is not quite as intimidating at the start of day 2 as it would have been had the players gone off. Cook goes around the wicket and bowls, and that played uppishly but safe by Hartley. Nice stroke actually, away through square leg. Snater will stop it, and they're going to come back for a 3rd run. So positive start here this morning by these two, by looking to get as many runs as they can. I'm sure Lancashire this morning in the dressing room has sort of dusted themselves down and just thought through a game plan, and one of the things that must be foremost in their mind is they've just bowled Essex out for 100, so if they can just get another 50 or 60 here, they must feel that they're in with a decent chance. Building on a first innings lead of 24, of course, which is now worth 53, as Cook with 3 slips waiting bowls, and Bell just gets one that comes into his pads, and it rolls out into the offside, and there's no run. It wasn't just here where there were wickets tumbling yesterday in the evening. Hampshire shot out for 57, Kent 20 for 3 at the close. We'll keep an eye on that. You would have thought that certainly we might have seen the championship effectively settled yesterday evening with that collapse by Hampshire, but if they were to win the game, they've still got a chance if Lancashire beat Surrey and they beat Warwickshire next week. Here's Cook, and that one again just nipping back into the right-handed bell, but he negotiates it well enough, just allowing the ball to hit the pad, realising there's not any threat there. And well, Scott, we have to say that's a positive. Scott Reed, good morning to you. That's a positive start by Hartley and Bell this morning. 29 for 6 and the lead 53. What do you think of my thought that if they can make Essex get more runs than they got in the first innings, and they'll quietly feel they've got a chance?
Yeah, I think they would. Well, I mean, on the evidence of what we saw yesterday, that they would they might well have half a chance. I'm a bit reluctant to try and predict what might happen, really.
Yeah.
You know, after what we saw yesterday, they'll just try and, I guess, try and stretch it out as long as they can, keep batting as long as they can, and if they can try and get 100 in front, you never know.
And put it this way, if you, I won't be here tomorrow morning, but if you are, I'd be very surprised if Essex win the game, unless the pitch were to flatten out, because we expect to have uninterrupted play today as Snater goes round the wicket and bowls, and that's a slight miscue from Hartley, but just indication that the pitch did a little something there. It was well pitched up. He was trying to play it away through mid-on, and it just came rather awkwardly off the bat out towards Cushy at sort of wide mid-wicket. So 29 for 6, and clearly it was very difficult to bat under the lights yesterday, particularly as Glenn Chappell noted. Yeah,
it was it was difficult, wasn't it, at the back end of the Essex innings under lights, and then Lancashire's second innings was pretty torrid, really.
Still the lights on, the Snater bowls, and they've just jagged back into Hartley slightly, but he plays it comfortably enough out into the covers, and there is no run. So day 2, it may be...
Maybe it's a batting day.
Yeah, it may be a batting day, maybe the final day of the season here at Chelmsford. I do think this match will last longer than its equivalent last year, when the game against Northants ended about half an hour from now, I think, on day 2, if memory serves me right. So this is likely to be the last day at Chelmsford this season, and the forecast, I'm afraid, next week is not great for Northampton, as this is played up towards Cushy at wide mid-wicket and Mesno. I'm not sure if I've seen the Old Trafford forecast for next week, but
I haven't, no.
As ever, the weather seems to cave in the last week of the season. I remember that happening famously, the famous Somerset-Essex match on a dust bowl at Taunton. Do you remember that one settled the championship in 2019? And we'd had a beautiful day at Edgbaston for the T20 finals day the previous Saturday, and the weather then just fell apart, and pouring with rain on the Monday. Vivid memories of going into Taunton to buy an umbrella, managing to get one as well. Of course, the town centre is so close by, which is great. Here is Snater going round the wicket. Oh, just jags into Hartley again. Just rolls away into the offside, and there is no run. Yes, not looking particularly good at Northampton next week. I'll have a little check on Old Trafford in just a moment. But today, 20 degrees. That's slightly warmer than yesterday. Cloudy, maybe little bits of sunshine. No real threat of rain. And if we were to have play tomorrow, it'd be 20 degrees as well. So that would be certainly no issues with delays in play, other than potentially for the light under the cloud cover at the end of the day. Snater bowls, and that's just played up into the offside and goes up to cover, and there is no run. Glenn Chappell obviously not very happy with the way that the pitch was playing. Quite strident comments, actually, and I can understand his annoyance, because obviously they're looking to come here and playing under sort of conditions that were an even match for bat and ball, and potential of a very good contest, as it might yet be, but not quite in the way that perhaps we were anticipating.
No.
Get your thoughts after this one from Snater, and then bring you in for commentary on the next over as Snater bowls, and that's just played defensively again, just from the crease up into the covers, and there's no run. So 29 for 6 with 19 to the impressive Bell and 5 to Hartley. Clearly. Remember, obviously, Glenn from the 20 all-out game, but I think that was a better pitch than this one, and I think his feeling was it was very difficult, wasn't it, for batsmen to know what the ball was going to do, particularly once we started to play under lights.
Yeah, Glenn Chappell last night said these in his kind of end of day thoughts. We've got lads in really good form who are having good seasons, and they just found the pitch unplayable. The surface looks poor. The ball is coming off different every time, but we're going to try and get as many in front as we can and see what happens to the pitch in the remaining part of the game. In no way, shape or form is that pitch good enough. We're here for 4 days and the pitch isn't good enough, is his views. There's Cook balls to Bell, who defends back along the pitch, and there's no run. So yeah, that was what I spoke to Glenn last night. I mean, it's always quite awkward, isn't it, because it's the thing you just need to talk about, isn't it? And
yeah,
26 wickets fallen a day. You need to ask about what they think of the pitch.
23 wickets to Southampton. Just reading the report on that, it was a green top. Odd choice of pitch by Hampshire, I thought, but a green top, but just offering movement, but not irregular bounce.
Cook balls to Bell. It's a little edgy, but he gets 4, I think, for it. He will, yeah. Just a little tentative there, Bell, but maybe the fact he played it quite softly was to his benefit. Went away from third slip to third slip's right-hand side, along the ground, and down towards the third man boundary, and 4 runs. Takes a total on to 33 for 6, and Bell moves to 23 not out.
So I imagine it was difficult batting there in the evening session as well, but the problem here was more the irregular bounce, in particularly deliveries, for example, like the one that got Critchley out, which obviously reared up at him and he fended it to third slip. That was an example of the sort of problems the batsmen were having.
3 slips become 2 now. Harmer just slightly closer in at second slip. As Bell defends, easing it up towards mid-off. There is no run. We've got the floodlights on, as Nick mentioned. Finished last night under floodlights. Got a decent number of spectators inside the ground. Not as many as this time yesterday. Thought it was a good crowd yesterday. And they certainly got value for money in terms of action. Sam Cook running in towards the debutant George Bell. He's only 19. He'll step down the pitch and then eases the ball away to backward point. And there's no run. There's 3 on the offside at point. Extra cover mid-off. There's a mid-on. There's a deep square leg, and there's long leg as well.
Yeah, and thanks for emails coming in already this morning on bbc6cricket@gmail.com. One I think we didn't get round to yesterday from Barry Banks. Hello Barry, I hope you're still listening. Yeah, talking about Adam Rossington. He's obviously batted very well, certainly particularly in the T20. But in the longer form of the game, you're saying maybe just flattering to deceive a little bit. But if you look at his career average, he's not far away from what he does there.
He's up behind the stumps this time as Cook comes in. It's flashed away by Bell down to Snater at fine leg for a single. Bell moves on to 24 now, 34 for 6.
Yeah, we'll have just check on Rossington's career average against his performance this season, but I don't think it's far away. So you say his batting performances have been a little bit of a disappointment, and you were impressed by Grant Rowlifson, weren't we all, who batted with composure in the Royal London Cup while also contributing good performances behind the stumps. He may well have alerted a few interested counties in his services. You hope not, but it's difficult to keep everybody happy, as may similarly be the case for Paul Water, Feroz Khushi and all. Thanks for your comments, Barry. Hope you're still listening.
Sam Cook comes around the wicket to Tom Hartley, who defends into the offside, picked up by Brown at extra cover. No run, end of the over, 34 for 6. Lancashire lead by 58.
Put it this way, Grant Rowlifson, I would be absolutely staggered if Essex aren't inquiring when he might be available next year, particularly in the context of the 50 over competition. I don't know if you saw him. He came in to the side I can't remember if he was in the side for Sedbergh or not, because basically he'd been sort of brought in as a sort of a club cricketer who'd been playing locally, and he just looked absolutely high class. So the innings he played at Worcester, Paul has seen a few of his innings, and he played innings at run-up ball innings at Worcester where he just looked absolutely sublime, and one of the turning points of the game was when he got out. So he could be someone that I think will be on a few radars, and it'll be very interesting to see obviously what sort of approach might be made next season.
Jamie Porter is not on the field.
Porter's not on the field, Paul Newton noting, because he didn't opening bowling yesterday. Snater bowling here. I'm not altogether surprised that it's Cook and Snater opening the bowling, given what happened yesterday, but Jamie Porter not on the field. So Essex, of course, going in with just the 3 frontline seamers and no Paul Walter because of injury. So it's going to be these 2 that do the work, and I suppose it's maybe a salutary reminder that going in with 3 seamers on a flat wicket at Edgbaston or the Oval, if something like that would have happened, you really would be in trouble. Here, perhaps not so much of a concern, but there could be work for Snater and Cook to do. That was bowling, less work now maybe. He was trying to flash out away, was young Bell through the onside, but a bit of movement has knocked out his off stump. It looked a fairly flamboyant shot. He was looking to hit it basically, I think, through mid-wicket, but I think a little bit of movement has done for him, then looked quite well pitched up. Snater coming in from the river end. Yeah, it looks like it's basically just a bit of a leg cutter. It's knocked out his off stump and he just played down the wrong line. He'll be across with himself there. And 5 wickets for Snater. 5 for 6 in 4.2 overs. That's a pretty handy return. And Bell has been bowled by Snater for 24, and it's 34 for 7 with Hartley on 5.
He'll take a lot, I think. George Bell from his first-class debut. I don't think he'll forget it too much. Had some nice shots yesterday. Looked quite composed. There's a couple of kind of wafts outside off stump yesterday, but that can happen, especially when you factor in everything that was going on through the course of the day. But as first-class debuts go, I think he's kept really well, and on both occasions with the bat, I think he's applied himself pretty smartly.
That one, I think he ended up sort of playing across the line a little bit, just maybe a little bit of movement there from Snater, and it's been typical basically of how he's been getting his wickets. But what a performance by Snater, 5 for 6.
Yeah,
really outstanding. And as I say, thoughts of him being the Essex player of the season in terms of his dynamic impact this year with bat and ball. I think that was the best way of sort of summing it up, really. He really has been an impact player for Essex this year. Someone who's certainly capable of batting at number 8 in the Graham Napier role. Similar sort of style to Graham and his intent at the crease. And equally, of course, adept with the ball. I can imagine Graham Napier bowling a sort of spell that Snater did yesterday, as this is played defensively back down the pitch by Bailey, who's just come in, 34 for 7. The lead, significantly 58. And I want to try and push that up towards, and ideally from a Lancashire point of view, over 100. 34 for 7. With Snater now 5 for 6. One of those situations on a pitch like this, you can't take your eyes off the action. Solidly overcast, lights on, Snater bowls, just the 2 slips with Rossington standing up, and Bailey plays it out towards Critchley, wide of Critchley actually at mid-wicket, allows himself the opportunity to get away from the strike. 35 for 7.
Just looking, Nick, at the schedules for next season. The international schedules for next season have been released this morning. So of course the Ashes next year, both men's and women's in this country, but there's a few interesting things to come from this.
Yeah, let's get your thoughts on that, and a little run through in a moment as Snater goes round the wicket. Again, a bit of movement there, but Hartley negotiates it well, plays it to backward point, and there's no run. 35 for 7.
I guess one of the headlines is England's women will play a home Ashes Test match against Australia over 5 days instead of 4 for the very first time, and the men's 5 Test Ashes series will run through June and July.
Yes. As expected.
As expected, yeah. So this is how England's home international fixtures look for the men. Test matches against Ireland and Australia.
So that's the beauty from Snater, which beats Hartley on the forward defensive outside the off stump, and lifted as well. Terrific delivery. 35 for 7. Hartley 5, Bailey 1, with Bell out to Snater in that over, and Snater has 5 for 7, and Lancashire lead by 59.
So it's 1 Test match against Ireland at Lords at the start of June, and the 5 Ashes Test matches start in June through until July. Right at the very end of August, there is a T20 international against New Zealand, and then through September there is international cricket. There's T20 series against New Zealand, a one-day international series against New Zealand, and 3 one-day internationals against Ireland. So there's international cricket all through September in T20 and one-day international cricket next year. And I mentioned that 5-day test match for England's women as well. It's Cook to Bailey. That's a nice shot, driven away through the offside. Snater's at third man, trying to get around to cut the ball off, but lovely timing from Bailey. Struck that firmly, just a fraction behind square on the offside for 4 runs. Bailey moves on to 5, and Lancashire 39 for 7. It's that lead now of 63.
And seeing the World Test Championship finals staying in England in 2023 and 2025, being hosted at the Oval and Lords respectively. So quite a lot of information coming out now about the international future, and also the probable programme the counties are going to be voting on for 2024 domestically.
Sam Cook over the wicket bowls, and Bailey rocks back and may have gloved it down towards the boundary. It's gone for 4 runs. I think that may have come off his glove as he tried to pull it.
Useful runs for Lancashire, but as I say, this Porter's injury is just a salutary reminder for Essex of the dangers of going in with a 3-man seam attack. I think in this situation, Lancashire will sort of sense, well, we just can stay in, and when they are 7 down, it's perhaps fortunate for Essex the fact that Lancashire aren't 3 down, because Lancashire's eyes will be lighting up at the prospect of seeing off Cook and Snater. Even with Harmer to deal with, there'll be a little bit of respite, at least from one end.
Cook to Bailey, who gets forward in defence. Ball bounces out to Brown. Cover, and there is no run. So
basically, Scott, what they're doing, and I thought there was a lot of nonsense. There was a nonsense article about the fact that there was going to be no test matches during August because of the Premier League, which I knew was complete nonsense, because of course the final of the 100 was played underneath a Premier League match. So I don't think they were that bothered about that. Far more relevant, they're not playing test cricket in August because of the 100 itself. That's the truth. They want to give it as much exposure as possible.
Cook to Bailey, drives off a inside half of the bat. Ball deflects out towards the leg side as he's pushing through the off. Gets a run for it. Bailey moves into double figures, I think. Yeah, he moves to 10. It's 44 for 7. Lancashire, they lead by 68.
They have been stung by Stokes and Bairstow's non-availability for the 100 this year. As Paul was saying on air yesterday, the issue with the 100, it's not best against best. It's, you're looking like, would Welsh Fire get out of a T20 blast group, for example, just as a sort of a side thought. What they're doing is justifying the 100 as basically preparation for a white ball programme in September, and that's what we're going to see a lot in future.
Cook comes around the wicket to Hartley. Well, that's a good shot. That's 4. Cut away by Hartley through the offside, just behind square. Little bit of width, and he slices the ball firmly for 4 runs, and Hartley takes his total up to 9. 48 for 7 now.
No huge issues with bounce this morning, but it seems to be doing a little bit less, which Lancashire got to try and make the most of this. They've had some fairly cheap runs actually, even in the last couple of overs, which have taken this lead now to 72. Hartley batting nicely, and Bailey settling in. Bailey, useful batsman down the order.
Yeah, Hartley at 8 and Bailey at 9 for Lancashire in this game. Around the wicket comes Cook, ball's full of length. He goes again, driving down on one knee. Away through backward point for successive boundaries to complete the over, and early signs of justifying his opportunity above Bailey in the batting order for Lancashire. That brings up the 50 as well for Lancs, for the loss of 7 wickets. So 52 it will be, I think, for 7. Yep, lead of 76.
Yeah, so the problem this year is the scheduling was all over the place, in that they have a 2 week rest before starting a test series against South Africa. No surprise, South Africa won that first test as England got themselves back into the mode of 5-day cricket. So I think we're going to see a lot in the future of international white ball in September, and using the 100 maybe to give the players a couple of weeks rest, and then playing the 100 for a couple of weeks to get white ball form before they play international cricket. It's more logical anyway.
Yep.
But yeah, disappointment that the Ashes isn't going into August, but I think that is the reason. more than anything else, I think, is Snater up to the wicket with 5 wickets to his name, and that's lofted away up towards Lawrence at mid-on. Is he going to catch it? He does. Well judged by Dan Lawrence that. Bailey was hopeful, but he had enough bat on that to clear Lawrence, but he didn't, and Lawrence just backing away, just going backwards in front of us, judged it pretty well, lined it up, has taken the catch. Snater has 6 for 7, and Bailey has gone for 10, and it's 52 for 8.
Yeah, pretty comfortable catch, wasn't it, for Lawrence in the end? Just had to run a pace or 2 backwards, but dropping nicely to Lawrence, and Bailey goes for 10, so 8 down now, 76 in front.
Well, we are seeing some extraordinary figures here for Shane Snater. There's no doubt about that.
5 for 7, is it?
Now 6 for 7. Which was actually the score at one point yesterday.
Yes,
the Australian, yes, that's right. If it was being played in Australia,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, quite extraordinary. It's a great performance from him. He has put the ball very much in the right place, and he has, he has been outstanding this season. In his, I'd say, really as an impact player. When he has a good day, it really makes a difference for Essex, and he's had a few of them this season. There is no doubt about that. Yeah, bold shot from Bailey, looking to clear the infield, but not quite making it, and holding out, well judged by Dan Lawrence. So 7 for 98. He got 7 wickets at Trent Bridge. 7 for 98 is his best bowling. Obviously, he's got a great chance of beating that as he's played defensively by Williams. Will Williams is in at 10, plays that one up towards mid-on, there's no run. So it could be, he might end up with 8 for a best of. Well, of course, if he gets one more wicket, it's definitely going to be his best of. He's not going to concede 98 in this innings. But if he would have sneak it up to 8, he could have some very, very remarkable figures. But Shane Snater having a great day out. His best bowling in a match is 8 for 94. So Snater bowls, and that's it's just a stifled shot for LBW as it just hit the right-hander on the pad and rolled away into the offside. So it has been a memorable match for Shane Snater, with the ball particularly. Didn't have a chance to dazzle with the bat this time.
He kind of got the whole thing going yesterday, didn't he, as well? When he replaced replaced Sam Cook from this end as they switched Cook to the far end, but he got a wicket straight away and never looked back.
Absolutely. So Snater up to the wicket bowl, it's played defensively up into the onside, and there's no run. So just going back to his figures in the Lancashire first innings, 2 for 18, so that's 9 in the match, that's 8 in the match now, so he's certainly going to get his best bowling in the match in terms of the runs he's going to concede. It's equaling the 8 he had in his previous one, but he's got power to add to that, you feel, so we'll keep an eye on that. It's been a terrific performance from him. We might say in favourable conditions, but the critical thing is he's put the ball in the right place. 52 for 8 on BBC Essex and BBC Radio Lancashire. Lancashire lead by 76. That's played pretty well by Williams, just stretching forward and playing that down the pitch, and there's no run. Richard Ackland said, attention Paul Newton. He sent this before the start, so I'll refer this on to Paul actually when he comes on the air shortly, Richard, but he says a couple of revolutionary ideas. How about playing cricket in the summertime? You never know, the idea might catch on, and people might even play it at weekends. Well, yesterday, Richard, I was advocating that we should have started the September games 4 days earlier on the Friday. It would have been, I think, September the 1st or the 2nd, and that would have given you some weekend cricket, and that would be easier to schedule next year if there's no one-day final. Snater bowls, and that's a swivel pull down towards a fine leg for a couple of runs. Any runs useful now for Lancashire? A couple of runs to Williams, and 54 for 8. If the current pitch gets reportage of a same fate not before those used against Kent, Northants, Somerset. Those are the 3 games you mentioned. You could also add the Yorkshire game perhaps, and certainly, Richard, there's no question that the pitches here at Chelmsford are a central issue for Essex to resolve next year, almost ahead of everything else. So my idea of the ideal pitch for Essex is Old Trafford. Quite seriously, it offers the right sort of pace and bounce, but you can get runs on it. And Snater getting a round of applause. Quite rightly so. 6 for 9. The figure's damaged by that 2 off the last ball. 54 for 8. Hartley 13 and Williams 2. And the lead is 78.
Yeah, they are slightly biased, I get that, but I think pretty across the board everyone would agree that they are good pitches of it. At OT. This is shuffled away through the onside by Hartley. He gets a single for it. He moves on to 14. Score moves on to 55 for 8. Lead is up to 79.
Glass half full for Paul Oakes. Morning, Paul. You say that it looks like it's going to be an Essex win this morning. Great to see Essex back on great form again. Great way to end the last home game of the season. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously the issue of the pitch, but certainly you can't criticise the way that Essex have performed with the ball in this match, and indeed Lancashire as well. Both sides have bowled well. Some of the batting, obviously, at times has not been at its best, but the pitch has certainly played a part.
Williams on strike, couple of slips in place. It's Cook who comes over the wicket to Will Williams. Just trying to run it down to third man, but picked up backward of point. There's no run.
And here's an Essex supporter hoping for a Lancashire recovery. You say you're feeling pretty sad, Nick. This is Mike in North London. Looking forward to 4 days of banter. Really grateful to Essex Cricket for its genuineness, openness and honesty, and for fielding my comments with me often in my delivery stride. Yes, we always like people coming off their long run. We can cope with 3 or 4 bounces in an over before we get the umpire to intervene.
Cook from the Hayes Close end of the ground. Williams with a step down the pitch, with a straight bat, deflecting it on the bounce back to the bowler. There's no run.
And Mike, you say you hope for a Lancashire recovery and trust the staunchest of Essex supporters might at least appreciate the sentiments of other cricket lovers who may have more than a soft spot for this wonderful county, with also more than just an appreciation of Lancashire's history too. Yes, Mike, let's hope the game goes on for a fair while today. I suspect if it goes into tomorrow, you've got to fancy Lancashire, but yeah, I'm a bit worried about the weather next week. I'm at Northampton for a couple of days, but the weather doesn't look great.
Cook to Williams with Rossington standing right up behind the stumps, and that's defender. The ball deflects away to mid-wicket, and there's no run.
James Dobson, morning to you, saying any idea why there's no live video on the Essex website? Wasn't any yesterday. Have to go to the Lancashire website to find it. We don't have any sort of direct responsibility for what's on the website, but obviously by reading that out, hopefully we might alert sort of these sort of issues. But hopefully have been able to find some live action.
Cook into to Williams. Ball for an LBW. The ball just deflects, I think, off his thigh pad. Just trickles down towards kind of short fine line. What's the umpire going to give here? Oh no, he's got something on that. Maybe that was the little inside edge. Just thought it was a little deflection away. So it gets a run for it, Williams. So he moves to 3. 56 for 8. What's the lead now? 80, I think. Yep,
Steve Plamplin. We've had a torrent of emails in this first half hour. Steve Plamplin with us from Braintree and saying, how will Mr. Chappell blame the pitch for Bell walking a yard outside off stump trying to play across the line when they're 34 for 6? This coupled with the multiple wickets yesterday to reverse sweep would suggest that more circumspect batting might be required. That's what Simon Harmer was saying, Steve, that it's not just the pitch, it's batting as well.
Final ball of the over, around the wicket to Hartley, swatted up towards mid-on, and they scamper through for a single. Hartley to 15 now, 57 for 8.
Thanks very much to Scott back with us very shortly. Paul Newton in as well very soon. Got our 11 o'clock news update in just a moment. Steve, I'm concerned about this pitch, and I do think Essex have got problems. Obviously we've had very unbalanced pitches at Chelmsford this year. It's now got the winter to look at it. And I say my ideal model for Chelmsford is 7 pitches for 7 games, just like Old Trafford. I think Essex will win quite a few of them, but they get a few batting points as well. But there's got to be a happy medium. I thought the Hampshire pitch in the end, I know there were some complaints about it, not least from the visitors, but I thought that was a pretty good contest. 3 scores of over 200. The side batting last almost got 300. This one a little bit more difficult to defend, and it was really tough batting under lights yesterday. I do wonder though whether the umpires might have made an assessment about the fairness of the play and perhaps decided that it was appropriate to call things off earlier than they did. As Snater, 57 for 6, bowls to Williams, and it's played defensively into the offside. There's probably no provision in the rules for them to do that though if they're satisfied with the light. That's the point. Neil saying, as you rightly said, the Ashes are being played in June and July. It's all about saving the 100, nothing more. I'm sure that most county cricket supporters wish it an early demise, and with TV viewing figures down 20% year on year, it seems the casual viewers agree. Yes, the men's 100 this year, I wouldn't call it a failure, but let's be honest, it wasn't the most exciting of viewing. The blast was a much better view. Let's play defensively up into the offside. And there's no run. So Shane Snater, 6 for 9. No Jamie Porter on the field. How long will Cook and Snater bowl in tandem? And an exciting morning already here as Lancashire trying to build on their 25 for 6. Snater up to the wicket bowls, played defensively up towards mid-wicket. They scamper through for a single because it went very slowly. So 58 for 8. Hartley goes to 16. Took a while for Brown to be able to get in to stop that one. They managed to sneak a single. Williams on strike at 58 for 8. And we've got an update into our news coming up very shortly, and then Paul Newton will be with us, and Scott will be back as well. 58 for 8. Snater up to the wicket and play defensively. Well, the drama continues. Lancashire continuing to bat under lights. Have lost 2 more wickets this morning, but actually have made relatively good progress compared to yesterday, when at one point they were 7 for 6, and now 58 for 8. And Shane Snater has taken the 2 wickets and now has the remarkable figures of 6 for 10. First of all, he got the debutant George Bell, who was playing a rather ambitious shot going across the line, trying to drive through the onside. He was bowled for 24, and then Tom Bailey tried to loft Snater over mid-on, but didn't quite manage to do it, and in the end Dan Lawrence judged a well-judged catch at mid-on to remove him for 10. So Will Williams is there on 3, Tom Hartley on 15, 58 for 8. Lancashire's lead is now worth 82, and Essex won't want them to get too many more. And I shall make my way. I think we're just about at the end of this over. We've got 1 ball left, so I'll just do this one, and then I shall make my way off to bring Paul in. And I'll just see this from Snater. That's outside the off stump and left alone. So yeah, thanks for all the emails we've had so far. Please keep them coming. bbcscricket@gmail.com. I'll be back shortly. But 58 for 8. With 3 to Williams and 16 to Hartley. A few more words now from Scott, and to be joined by Paul Newton.
Thanks, Nick, and thankfully that alarm's gone off. It's quite irritating. I don't know what it was or where it was coming from, but it was beeping away in the background. There's a little rattle of wickets early on in the game. I don't know whether Nick updated you with this, and apologies if he has already, but I've just seen that Kent have lost a couple of wickets in the early part of day 2. So Kent are 59 for 4. They lead Hampshire by 167 runs. Hampshire would have to get already the biggest score in the match to win that game, but 59 for 4, lead of 167. There's Sam Cook around the wicket, played uppishly by Hartley, but played beautifully through mid-wicket actually for 4. He's taken it off his toes, just off the face of the bat, and deflected away through mid-wicket on the bounce out towards the boundary for 4 runs. Excellent knock this from Hartley. He moves on to 20, and the score moves on to 62 for 8. The lead is 86, as it looks just a fraction brighter, but still we have the floodlights on. Down to 1 slip in place, which is Sir Alistair Cook with a short extra cover and a mid-off and a mid-on and a deep mid-wicket and a deep backward square leg, deep point and 3rd man. That's swatted up towards mid-on. He might be caught here. No, it bounces just in front. Actually, of mid-off. It's Harmer coming up from mid-off, and he bounces just in front of the Essex fielder as he went for a big swat away. Takes a single instead. So he moves on to 21 now, 63 for 8. Lead by 87. Brings Will Williams back on strikes. And a couple of wickets falling inside the first half an hour of play. George Bell and Tom Bailey. The two men out for Lancashire on this second day. As Williams plays forward in defence and actually gets a run for it. The ball just deflects to the right of Cook. And it just trickles its way up towards mid-on. And Williams takes a single. Pushes Lancashire up to 64 for 8. And the lead moves on to 88. Yeah, Bell out for 24 and Bailey for 10. And Snater, 7 overs, 6 for 10. Whilst Sam Cook has got 3 balls left of his 9th over. He's picked up 2 for 41. And Tom Hartley returns on strike. It's short but down the leg side. Tumbling take. Good one from Adam Rossington away to his right hand side. And there's no run, and we say for the first time this morning, a good morning to Paul Newton.
Good morning, Scott. Good morning, everyone. I think there's an argument that says it's been Lancashire's morning so far. I know they've lost 2 vital wickets, perhaps the 2 that you'd choose to take if you were Essex. But Sam Cook just hasn't been at all up to his usual standard today. He's going 5 and over. Snater's been outstanding.
He's had some game, hasn't he, Snater? Cook to Hartley and swings at this one. The ball just deflects away to backward square leg, but with no bat on it. Went for the swing, missed it, flicked the pad. The ball ricochets out to the leg side, jogs through for a leg by, so Hartley remains on 21. The score to 65 for 8. The lead is 89.
Yes, I mean, that was an example, really. That was actually a full toss from Cook, whereas normally it'd be a Yorker. You know, he's just not quite been himself. There's been a few down leg side, and as I say, normally you'd have your absolute life on him being more economical than Shane Snater, who often goes at 5 or 6, but the roles reverse. Snater 6 for 10, Cook 2 for 41.
Williams on strike, keeper standing up again. It's turned to the leg side, just in front of square. Roll of the wrist and guides the ball safely along the ground for a single, and he keeps the strike, Will Williams, because that completes the 19th over of the Lancashire second innings. 66 for 8, a lead of 90. Hartley has 21 and Williams on 5, and yes, slightly from his high standards, a slightly scruffy over that really from Sam Cook.
Yeah, as of all his overs today, I'm afraid. I won't quite say his greatest fan, because one must always consider the possibility there may be one greater still. But having said that, I think the world of him. I think he's a fantastic bowler. Totally agree with Tom Wesley saying he's a world-class operator when I interviewed Tom a week ago. But by his normal standards today, whereas you can usually reckon at least 5 out of 6 balls of his over are bang on the mark, today it's been role reverse. Only about 1 an over has really been where he'd ideally want it. Now this bloke, Shane Snater, has bowled magnificently, and he's got 6 for 10, and he continues from the river end. The ball's played out to short mid-wicket, and I think it's a bit of a dilemma for Wesley, Scott, because Jamie Porter is off the field, Ben Allison substituting for him, so he's a key bowler down, so he can't replace Cook with Porter at that end. Equally, with Snater bowling as he has been, his instinct to bring Simon Harmer into the attack, he doesn't actually want to take Snater off while he's going so well. And that ball is taken very well by Rossington there, who breaks the stumps, but batsman had not left his ground. Snater, as I said, bowling so well, and the point being, Harmer likes to bowl from the river end, where Snater is bowling from. So personally, I'd also consider switching Cook to this end, because he'd almost certainly bowl better, because he's been so below his best from the Hayes close end. Snater bowls, and the ball is played down to mid-on, and for sure previously Cook's bowled excellently from the Hayes close end, but today he might just benefit from a change of scenery.
Yeah, well, through 40 minutes of play, so it's at that kind of moment where thinking about your first bowling change and where he will go.
With no Porter to call on, his only other options are really spin. Snater's in again, industrious as ever. bowls that's hit uppishly to Lawrence at mid-on, but ball bounces halfway to him, so it was nowhere near to being a catch. 66 for 8, had 24. The lead is 90, and I would suggest, Scott, that anything over 100 when you've been 7 for 6 and 31 in front only at that time would really, I think, pose a question or two for Essex.
I think it's probably about the best that Lancashire could hope for, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Snater in, bowls to Williams, who raises arms. Rossington standing up has really done very, very well indeed on an unpredictable pitch. He's hardly let byes through. I'm just looking to see if there have been any in this innings, but certainly he's made all sorts of excellent takes.
Yeah, he made it almost impossible yesterday for Lancashire because he was standing up to Snater.
Yep.
And the ball, he said, the pitch was unpredictable. Batter just had absolutely really nowhere to go.
Snater's in again, still with a vice-like grip as he bowls, and that one possibly a bit of inside edge into pad. Williams did the good thing there and got the front foot well down the track. Stifled appeal, but excellent maiden over from the remarkable Shane Snater. 8 overs, 2 maidens, 6 for 10, and when he came to Essex, even though he had attracted Netherlands recognition, when he came to Essex, he was very, very expensive indeed, and just hearing that 5 Live Extra have joined us, so the news this morning is that Lancashire, I think, have done rather well. They were leading by 49 on 25 for 6, having been 7 for 6. And although Essex have picked up 2 wickets this morning, both to Shane Snater, who has the remarkable figures of 8 overs, 2 maidens, 6 for 10, they've progressed to 66 for 8, leading by 90, with Tom Hartley doing particularly well on 21 not out.
Here's Sam Cook to Hartley. Oh, he swats that high up through the offside. Brown goes chasing after it. It lands safely, and Hartley comes back for 2 more. He moves on to 23. It's 68 for 8. And the lead is worth 92 runs.
And Hartley's played so well, he's actually hit Sam Cook off his normal, absolutely perfect length. And Cook's been very expensive this morning. In contrast to Snater, he's taken 2 for 44 and gone at about 5 and over.
Cook from the Hayes Close end of the grounds, running in towards us, 1 slip in place, balls to Hartley. Ooh, and that bounces on Hartley and deflects it, I think, off his chest.
Yeah.
Out in towards the offside, but for no run. For Sports Extra listeners who have just joined us, Scott Reed and Paul Newton with you on commentary, and we're into the 45 minutes of the morning session of day 2, and we have had 28 wickets falling in the game so far. Lancashire into their 2nd innings, all out for 130 yesterday, and then Essex all out for 110, and then Lancashire was 7 for 6 at one stage. As Cook comes into bowl, it looks maybe some lorry on a nearby road just honked its horn and completely put Cook off.
Well, it seemed that way. Yeah, it could even have been a honk from a railway train passing. Right. You know, it was a bit like an old diesel horn. But whatever it was, as you rightly say, whether it was coincidence or not, it appeared that it completely threw him.
It did. Didn't fancy bowling with the horn. Here comes Cook around the wicket, balls it short again, and I think he's edged it this time. He has. Hartley trying to uppercut it, and little thin top edge loops into the gloves of the keeper, Adam Rossington, and that's the end of an enterprising innings from Tom Hartley. He's made 23, but caught by Cook, who picks up his 3rd wicket. Lancashire are 9 down, 68 for 9, and their lead is 92 runs. Yeah, it's been a rather eventful day and a bit here in Chelmsford. Yeah. I mean, yesterday playing kind of for an hour or so under lights was pretty torrid, and it's made for an eventful couple of days for the supporters.
Very much so, and it's interesting that the first wicket that's fallen this morning fell at 34, so the subsequent 2 wickets have doubled the score. I know we were going from a low base, but 68 for 9 means that the least number of runs Essex will be required to win is 93. And if you look at the overall scores in the game, Lancashire 131, Essex 110, Lancashire now 68 for 9. You wouldn't want your house, or even something a little bit less valuable than your house, on Essex making this total, particularly when I tell you that only a few days ago I was at Headingley, where Essex needed 162 to win on what was not an easy pitch, but a much easier one than this one, and they were variously 64 for 6, having been 51 for 2. They were then 93 for 7, and the guy who's got 6 for 10 here, Shane Snater, played arguably the innings of his life. To be 65 not out, and his judgment of when to go for the bowling and when to defend was absolutely spot on. He was magnificent, and he has been a revelation this season, and with every innings that Essex play, Snater gets closer and closer to challenging Sam Cook to be Essex's player of the season.
How about your garden shed, Paul? Will you put that on it? You're not going to commit your house to it? Your garden shed?
I would the garden shed, because it's dilapidated.
Right.
It was all but destroyed in the famous storm of 1987. So you've picked a very good example there.
Parkinson, the new batter. Here's Sam Cook in and bowls, and Parkinson kind of pushing at that one. The ball is shaped away from the edge of Parkinson's bat. It nestles into the gloves of Adam Rossington. And there's no run. So you've not replaced your shed since the Great Storm?
No,
right.
I'm a distinctly, shall we say, one of the least enthusiastic gardeners that the world has ever seen. So much so that I hardly ever go into the garden.
68 for 9. Lead of 92. Second slip now. So Alistair Cook and Simon Horn are the 2 slip fielders. Again, Parkinson pushing at it. Ball snakes away past the edge of the bat into the gloves of Rossington, and there's no run. Where
Cook has picked up his wicket of Tom Hartley, but Hartley did very well for Lancashire because he took Cook on, hit him off his length, and Cook resorted to digging, 2 or 3 balls and over in short because he knew Hartley would go for the bait. Well, in the end, it's worked, but Hartley, in the context of the innings, has scored quite a few runs.
Parkinson waiting for Cook. Oh, that loops back up, and it's gone through Cook's hands. I'm not quite sure how he's not caught that.
No, he was, admittedly, he was sort of pulling away to his left and then had to change direction. But he seemed to be going to catch it. Yeah. I think the angle that we're looking from is just slightly deceptive in that I think it was a little bit further over to his right than it looked initially. But as you say, he stuck the hands up and it didn't stick. And we're going to probably finish by saying that Snater's final figures are going to be 6 for 10 because he's coming out to the attack. 8 overs, 2 maidens, 6 for 10 in one incredible over under the lights last night. He took 3 wickets in 4 balls, and I would just like to say, particularly with 5 live listeners joining us, the general thought among the players was that batting under the lights yesterday was almost impossible, and that little spell of about an hour, Cook had made 36, for example, when he was batting, didn't look in too much trouble. He was out almost immediately because the lights had just come on. And then, of course, the Lancashire batsmen, when they had to bat for what turned out to be 10 overs, were absolutely flummoxed, particularly by Snater.
It looked a bit tricky, didn't it, last night?
It did. I was glad to be this side of the playing surface.
So Harmer it is replacing Snater.
And he comes in now from the river end, his first ball of the morning. And this ball is going down towards the fine leg boundary, possibly just off the pad. And in fact, they decline the single because Parkinson would have been on strike. And so the score remains at 68 for 9, with Lancashire leading by 92. Williams has 5 and wants to protect Parkinson from the strike. And 1 or 2 changes to the field now. There'll be a slight delay because a couple of helmets are being produced. Certainly one of them for Nick Brown, who's going in at that pad. Sam Cook has been switched from backward point to 45 degrees short fine leg. And here Williams has a heave and misses. The score remaining at 68 for 9. And today we've seen George Bell, who's impressed in this his first championship game, made 16 and 24 and wicket kept thoroughly well. He was bowled by Snater for 24, which are big scores in this sort of match. Taken on the pad here is Williams, and Brown retrieves, and Tom Bailey hold out to Dan Lawrence off Snater for 10, as the next ball is dropped into the onside. And just recently we've seen Sam Cook get Tom Hartley caught behind for 23, digging one in short, and the ball gloved to the keeper. Here's Harmer in again, bowls, and not quite out of the middle of the bat, but effective enough here from Williams. Gets a single down to mid-off. Tom Wesley vigorously polishing the ball as ever, the Essex captain. 69 for 9, a lead of 93, the minimum Essex would require for victory in this ultra low scoring match would be 94. And Harmer's in again, a slip and a back pad and short mid wicket. Bowls, and this ball's looped up. I think it was only off the pad. The potential for a single is eschewed because it was the last ball of the over, and Williams considers himself, probably absolutely correctly, as the senior partner in terms of batting ability in this partnership with Parkinson, who's yet to get off the mark. Williams has 6, and in 22 overs Lancashire have struggled to 69 for 9.
Kent bumbling on. They're 80 for 4. Daniel Bell Drummond on 28 and Jack Leaning on 11. So Kent lead Hampshire by 188 runs with 6 wickets remaining. So Hampshire are going to have to get by some distance the biggest score in the match to win that game. Surrey managed to get themselves an extra batting bonus point, bowled out for 333, leaving Yorkshire to start their second innings and their 4 without loss. A high scoring draw wouldn't be the worst result for Surrey this week, as that's turned away into the onside by Williams. As Cook comes into bowl, Williams takes a single, moves on to 7. The score ticks along to 70 for 9, lead of 94 now. Indeed,
high scoring draws have been very important to Surrey because, as Nick Gledhill, our BBC Essex colleague, was pointing out yesterday, Hampshire have actually won 2 more games than Surrey, and yet find themselves at the start of this round of matches 8 points behind.
Surrey to Emirates Old Trafford next week for the final game of the season. Probably be leaders of Division 1 coming into that round. Cook bowls, forward goes Parkinson. Drives back down the pitch. Stopped by Cook off his own bowling, or at least with his left boot. And just sticks his boot out and blocks the ball. It flicks away towards the leg side. No run.
Jamie Porter's very good at stopping hard straight drives with his boot. Cook didn't look quite so enthusiastic just then. Jamie Porter, by the way, has not resumed the field this morning. Ben Allison is substituting for him. So Tom Wesley is a bowler down.
Cook over the wicket to Parkinson. Up onto his toes, just nudges the ball back along the pitch. Again, Cook fields, no run.
Cook 10.3 overs, 2 maidens, 3 for 45. Bowled brilliantly in both innings yesterday for Essex. Just wasn't quite at his best today. From the word go, there was the odd one that went down leg side, which Lancashire took advantage of, fully appreciating that any possible safe shot where you could score runs is vital here.
Cook to Parkinson, forward again. Just drops it up to mid-off. And there's no run.
70 for 9, add 24, the first innings lead for Lancashire. Not many people thought they'd get a first innings lead when they were bowled out yesterday for 131. But Essex, in the end, bearing in mind it is a low scoring game, got nowhere near it in being out for 107, trailing by 24, and now the lead is 94.
2 balls left of Cook's latest over. Balls just back of a length to Parkinson, who gets in behind and deflects the ball away to point.
It's interesting, Scott, to reflect on the last game last season at Chelmsford, which was then the final game of the season. It was Essex v Northants, and it was the record quickest game, or shortest game, of 4-day cricket. It was all over by about midday on day 2. I think this game will go on a little bit longer, but this is also going to be one of the shortest.
Final ball of the over. It's Cook over the wicket to Parkinson. Plays it, puts it in short, and Parkinson up onto his toes, steers the ball safely away, backward of square on the offside for 1 run. And he gets his first run with that, Matt Parkinson. And he keeps the strike as well. It's a 71 for 9, end of the over, lead of 95. We've had 23 overs of the Lancashire second innings.
Quick word for Northamptonshire. Watching them in that last game last season, which was Dave Ripley, the coach's final game, and I've known Dave since he was about 13 years old, and a lovely bloke, and it was a very sad last game for him because the players just didn't seem to have any spirit whatsoever in that game, as Essex won by a huge margin. But well done to Northampton this year. I think they'd have been most people's immediate fancy to come straight back down, and they started the round of matches now just one place below Essex in 5th place. And they've given some good sides, a decent game this season, so they've turned it round outstandingly well. But we've just got a conflab going on for the moment between Essex skipper Tom Wesley and Simon Harmer, 5 for 41 in the first innings. I spoke to Simon at the close of play yesterday. Charming man, and as ever, he was saying though that he when he bowled in the gloaming, he didn't find the ball did anything like as much for him as it did when he got 5 for 41 in the first innings. Here he is, beginning another over, and this ball is pulled into the deep mid-wicket area. Ben Allison substituting for Jamie Porter, who's clearly got some sort of injury and not on the field today. They get a single and they take it. 72 for 9 means that the lead is up to 96, and there will be a minimum required for Essex of 97. And in fact, that was, beg your pardon, that was Parkinson with the single, so he goes on for 2. Williams now on strike, and he's just defended this ball to the back pad. Nick Brown. Williams has 7, and if he has the opportunity for a single early in an over, in this partnership with Parkinson, he's tended to say, no, I'll keep the strike for the time being, thank you, as this ball is pushed into the offside. But having said that, he is now picking up a single, and he thinks of coming back for a second, and Parkinson had come a few strides down in response to that, has to get back sharpish, and just beats the throw to Rossington, who breaks the wicket, but Parkinson is safely back. So the score 73 for 9. That lead 97, and Harmer will bowl to Parkinson, who's made 2. Williams on 8. Harmer in, bowls to Parkinson. Parkinson pulls across the line, and he's out, LBW. And Lancashire are all out for 73. Parkinson, LBW on the sweep of Harmer for 2. And it all means that with the addition of the 24-run first innings lead, Lancashire finished 97 in front, and Essex will require 98 for victory. Thank you to Scott Reed for the moment, as I'm rejoined by Nick Gledhill.
Yep, so, well, I thought that if they could beat their previous lowest against Essex, and they have done, we'll talk about that game in a moment, that they'd have a decent chance. 98 the target. I suppose the one thing that Essex will think is that batting hasn't looked at its most difficult in the game this morning. The lights are still on, and you've got to sort of back yourself to get less than 100 to win. But if Lancashire can strike early, who knows, anything can happen. But what an outstanding performance, particularly from Shane Snater. And I'd say for me, he probably is the Essex player of the season. He's done enough now for me just in this game and what he did last week. Obviously Cook and Harmer have been very good, but for me it is Snater. I mean, as I say, I describe him as an impact player. When he has a good day, he makes an enormous difference to Essex. And getting a very good ovation here as he walks off and leading the Essex players off. So 73 all out, and meaning that 98 runs are required to win this game. I was just going to talk about that game in 78, but before we do that, just to keep a sort of logical order to things, just to have a quick look and see the details of this innings that we've just had. Remember, all sorts of extraordinary things on the scorecard: 4 for 5, 7 for 6, 25 for 6 overnight. But actually Lancashire did pretty well this morning. Cook not quite at his best. Snater was very, very good from River End. Of course, no Jamie Porter. So Bell was bowled by Snater for 24 from 28 balls, completing a pretty impressive championship debut. Although, of course, he's yet to have another stint behind the stumps, of course. And then we have Another wicket for Snater after that. It was Bailey who tried to loft him away over mid-on, but didn't quite get enough bat on it, and was caught by Lawrence. Well-judged catch. He was out for 10. So that was 52 for 8. Tom Hartley had been impressive in his accumulation of runs until he was caught behind off Cook for 23. That was 68 for 9. And then Matt Parkinson, LBW to Harmer for 2. 73 all out. Cook 3 for 46 in 11 overs. Snater 6 for 10 in 8. So technically not his best bowling because he got 7 for 98, but you almost think it's worth at least an equal mention, Paul.
Yes.
Simon Harmer 1 for 6 in 3.4, and when is Simon Harmer last bowled to 3.4 in a completed innings? And Matt Critchley 1 over for 10.
Yep, Critchley only bowled because there was a situation last evening where the umpires said to Tom Wesley, we can only carry on if you bowl your spinners. So Harmer came on, and Critchley had that 1 over that was rather expensive, and eventually they did come off a couple of overs early. So here we are. Actually yesterday was not a 96 over day in terms of actual play, but 90, because the last 2 overs of the allocation weren't bowled, and of course there were 2 gaps between innings where you take off 2 overs, so it was a 90 over day, but there was plenty of time in those 90 overs for 26 wickets to fall. Lancashire choosing to bat. It may yet turn out to be a match-winning decision to have batted first. At the time we thought they'd probably have second thoughts about their decision. 131 all out in 39.5 overs, with Harmer 5 for 41 and Cook 3 for 34. Essex in their turn struggled even more mightily and were all out for 107, redeemed only really by Alistair Cook's 40. Some superb bowling, particularly from Tom Bailey there with a 5 so Lancashire actually led by 24, only to subside to 7 for 6, with one particularly remarkable spell from over from Snater, where he took wickets with the first, second, the fourth ball of the over, and was very close to completing a hat-trick actually with the ball in between. He was totally unplayable last evening. Nick is absolutely right to suggest that batting is not quite as fraught today, although one may be made to look very foolish by that statement, but there was a time yesterday under the lights, Nick, in the gloaming, where I don't think anybody would have lasted, but today batting has just about been possible, at least to some extent.
Yes, you feel we don't know what might happen in terms of sanctions for the pitch, but the number of points that Essex get from this game could depend a lot on sort of how they go in this second innings. If they win the game by 8 wickets, it might be that everyone has rose-tinted spectacles and they get their points and there's none deducted, but if they lose by 40 runs, they could end up with a big deficit from this game.
How about this, Nick? Taunton, April. Essex needed 84 to win, won by 1 wicket. And the winning run was a leg by, which if the throw had been a little bit better, it would have been a run out, and the match would have been tied. Now up at Headingley, just last week, I watched Essex win once again by 1 wicket, and the final over began with Essex needing 1 run to win and Yorkshire needing 1 wicket for the tie. Snater was to hit the ball away. Actually it went to the boundary, but he was only credited with the 1 run which signalled the victory. So he was a brilliant 65 not out. So already we've had 2 1-wicket wins for Essex this season, and I'll tell you what, this could be very similar to that. I wouldn't be one bit surprised if, when it comes down to it, if Lancashire bowl as well as they did in the first innings, Essex could be 9 down, wanting, the odd run or 2 to get over the line.
So it means that 70 all out in 1978 stays as Lancashire's lowest score against Essex. You wouldn't have put much money on that at 7 for 6 yesterday. And just while we're waiting for the play to resume, just a quick memory of that one. This is the year before Essex won the championship, so we're just starting to make a mark. Essex made 379, Ken McCure made 128, 68 to Keith Fletcher. This game taking place at Southport, Trafalgar Road's Southport, back in July 1978. 78, a pretty wet summer. Lancashire in reply 70 all out. And yes, Bumble, David Lloyd made 2 and Clive Lloyd made a duck. And it was Lever 5 for 23 and Norbert Phillip 4 for 37. So really setting the benchmark, really, Paul, for what would happen the following year. Lancashire following on 194 And Jack Simmons there was top scoring. Jack coming in often and doing that sort of job for Essex. He came in for Lancashire. He came in at number 7 there before he was out to Ray East. 43 to him, and East 4 for 86. Ackfield 2 for 25. As a sort of like a sort of a prototype, a model for some of the sort of victories that Essex will get the following season, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy memories there. Just while we've got a minute, Jack Simmons, who you mentioned, was a fairly recent guest to the Essex Cricket Society, which is about to resume after a 3-year gap. And Tuesday, October the 11th, if anyone would like to come to the pavilion at 8 o'clock on Tuesday, October the 11th, the guest will be Graham Gooch. Paul Hiscock has taken over my role as chairman and will make a grand job of it. John Stevenson is the guest on November the 8th in November. And then it'll be Sue Redfern. It's always the second Tuesday in each winter month from October through to March. Sue Redfern, the woman umpire, will be the third guest in December, and it will be Richard Clark, who is also known as the Grumbler, will be the guest in January, and guest for February and March yet to be announced. But do come along. The fee for the whole season is £25. If you just wish to come to a single meeting, Graham Gooch, for example, it's £6 on the door. The players are about to resume. I've got an email here from Paul Weaver. He says, I'm currently among the Greek islands and have avoided the most recent of Britain's many maladies. I really need a whirring helicopter on permanent standby. Because I am away, I'm a little behind in my newspaper reading, but for a brief restoration of sanity, I heartily recommend a splendid piece. And unfortunately, his email has disappeared slightly off the screen as the first ball, bowled by Tom Bailey, goes through with Brown not looking terribly assured with it. It goes through to the keeper in the end, but Brown, Nick, coming off 3 very low scores.
Yeah, we could do with some runs here. He has a habit, Brown, of playing an important knock just when people are starting to doubt his place in the side. We had a few emails through just in the last half hour, and thanks Michael for your email, which is actually addressed to Paul. Gosh, that was a terrific delivery. It's just cut back into Brown, pitched round about off stump, and Jack back in and just missed the off stump, and a hint of movement already from Bailey, which is going to be a concern for these batsmen. Yes, Paul basically being addressed by Michael, saying he's got Radio 3 on the background, and he's loving the batting analogies from Paul with the hardest of compositions and concerti, as this is driven by Brown slightly awkwardly up towards mid-off, and he's trying to think of batsmen who concentrated so hard to match these musical delights. The great Steve Waugh among his favourites, Mackenzie of South Africa, a real technician as well. Thanks to Mike in North London. Paul Oakes just saying, why is Jamie Falter off the field? They're not resting him, Paul. He has got an injury which he kept him off the field towards the end yesterday, and reduced Essex to 2 seamers, but in the end able to bowl Lancashire out, as here is a drive from Brown, but without any timing. The target 98, and 0 for 0 in this first over after Lancashire bowled out for 73. Yeah,
and just to add one or two people of immense concentration, Trevor Bailey, of course, a great friend in Essex. Slasher Mackay, when I first followed cricket, the Australian who played in the 50s. With people like Ray Limwell and Keith Miller. That was the first season I was ever interested in cricket.
3 slips, backward point cover, mid-off, mid-on, wide mid-wicket, and Brown on the drive will get it past cover, probably for 2, being chased back by mid-off. They've got the first, they'll come back for the second. So it gets Essex off the mark in its pursuit of 98. And so Essex 24 behind on first innings, needing 98 to win after Shane Snater's 6 wickets and Lancashire all out for 73. They are 2 for no wicket.
And one more, if I may add, to people who could concentrate. Sunil Gavaskar, the great Indian, who once, I think, made something like 39 not out in a 60-over one-day game.
That was 1975 World Cup, England against India,
yes,
where
indeed.
India decided to play for a draw, famously, as that was, then we're told you can't have draws. That's outside the off stump, and they're all getting used to one-day cricket at that point. Gathered in by Bell. Yes, England made something like 340, which was a very big score in those days, and Gallagher decided to bat the overs out because it was impossible for England to win. A 1975 World Cup played in glorious weather in June 75. 2 for no wicket. Brown has 2 and Cook no score.
Email from Ron Clark to bbcsexcricket@gmail.com. He says, I would definitely go for a positive attitude in the run chase. Very unlikely to happen, but my batting order would be Rossington opening with Cushy, Critchley at 3, Lawrence at 4, Snater at 5, Wesley 6, Alistair Cook 7 and Brown 8. A quick 30 at the top of the innings and this is game over. But a pair of Brown and Cook would just keep Lancashire in the game.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. You could sort of approach it like a sort of a one-day game in the sense that there's a ball with your name on it, but might have gone through the minds of the Essex dressing room, but they're going for the orthodox approach.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Hiscock, who I was just mentioning, is taking over from me as the chairman of the Cricket Society, and he was just saying to me a few moments ago that he would open with Rossington, so you've got at least one supporter on. As we see the first ball from the river end played into the ground, and it's Will Williams who's opening from the opposite end to which he bowled in the first innings. Brown playing that ball fairly confidently, square on the offside, but straight to Stephen Croft, and there is no run, and Essex needing 98 to win. A 2 for no wicket after 1.1 overs, 1.2 overs.
Yeah. BBC Essex, BBC Radio Lancashire, and the BBC Sport website and that. Nick Laird-Hill, Paul Newton, Scott Reed here at Chelmsford.
Actually, 1.1 overs was correct, and this is beautifully played away by Alistair Cook, and the ball is disappearing. I think it's going to reach the mid-wicket boundary, and does. There's plenty of space there, and Williams, whose soul of accuracy normally, just straight onto Midland leg there. It's what you call a little bit too straight, and clearly dispatched to the mid-wicket boundary by Alistair Cook, who is off the mark with that boundary, and Essex are 6 for no wicket, wanting a further 92 to win.
Yes, email about Adam Rossington earlier on. I said I was going to look up his overall first-class career average. He is a little bit short of it this season.
Williams bowls and Cook taking on the pad. Might have been an inside edge, but I think this is going to be a leg by, and they get one of something, and it very much looks, and indeed is, that David Milnes is now signalling. 7 for no wicket, 2 to Brown, 4 to Cook, and the leg by there. And Essex require a further 91 for victory. Just looking at the time now, it's 11:43. Will the game, if Essex continue to score quickly, reach the scheduled lunch hour at 12:30? My guess is it will, because I think there's plenty of wickets that can fall along the way before Essex get anywhere near this total. Williams bowls and Brown leaves the ball well outside off stump. Williams just not quite got his radar sorted yet, but he has only bowled 4 deliveries, dot 4 leg by dot so far.
Yes, Bob Money from the Hayes Close end yesterday. Rossington averaging 26 this season, career average 34. So yeah, he is a little bit down on his normal average. If he can get to mid-30s next year, it's going to be a big bonus for Essex.
Nice email from Jeff Hawes, who says, morning all, do you remember the game at Garran Park in Southend when David Masters took 8 for 10 against Leicestershire? Here's Williams in, bowls to Brown. He's squared up here, but the ball is safely enough along the ground to Stephen Croft at point. No run, 7 for no wicket. I had the great pleasure not only of being there, but interviewing David Masters that day, and well, it was a phenomenal performance. Obviously Leicester didn't bat terribly well. Lovely to remember David Masters, an absolutely outstanding bowler and a lovely man, a real gentleman as well. That was the day when, if the game had been in Chelmsford, not a ball would have been bowled. It was chucking it down, but on the coast play was possible virtually without interruption. This ball's played down into the ground, it's parried in the slip, it ricocheted about 10 yards beyond third slip there, but is easily retrieved at the cost of no run. A dot ball to end the over, but far from the best over I've seen Will Williams bowl. He hardly gave anything away at all yesterday, and I'm sure he'll soon get his radar sorted today. Cook has 4, Brown 2. 2 overs gone. Essex requiring 98 to win, having bowled out Lancashire for 73 this morning, are 7 for no wicket.
Sorry, 333 all out. Lost their last 4 wickets fairly quickly this morning at the Oval. Doubtless batting conditions are pretty tricky there. Steve Patterson 4 for 69, 3 wickets to Ben Code, and here's Cook covering up and just playing defensively to Bailey into the onside, and there is no run. And Yorkshire 14 for no wicket, and I tell you what, Hampshire are going to be relying on Yorkshire a little bit now. They've been struggling to take wickets this morning. They have just made a breakthrough at the Aegeus Bowl. Kent 106 for 5. That includes 2 night watchmen. Bell Drummond has just gone to James Fuller for 40. Leading is 21 not out, so the lead is 214, and Hampshire have got to wrap Kent up pretty quickly there to have a chance. And here, this nudges back into Cook. A bit of extra bounce there. That was rather awkward for Alistair Cook. Hit him quite high on the pad, but stifled shout. He's gone for a walk towards short leg to recover Cook. That might have hit him quite awkwardly in a bit of unprotected area, but he's okay.
Yes, that perhaps is one of the few times actually today where the pitch has looked up to its tricks again, because for the most part batting has actually been relatively possible.
Yeah, hit him above the knee on that looked quite awkward, round about knee height. 3 slips waiting and 5 saving 1, and Cook on the drive sent it to mid-off, and there's no run. Essex haven't lost a wicket yet, 7 for no wicket, target of 98 after bowling Lancashire out for 73, and that was pretty good from Lancashire given they were 4 for 5, 7 for 6, 25 for 6 overnight. Yeah, they did pretty well this morning.
Yes, I think so. Of course, probably you would say on any normal pitch and any normal match situation that they didn't do too badly, but you wouldn't actually say they did pretty well. But compared to what went on yesterday, they did extremely well this morning.
Yeah, they'll be regretting that period of play under the lights when they lost the cream of their batting, as it could make a difference in the game, as Cook plays a nice typical Alistair Cook shot for probably 2, just a sort of like a short arm jab. He realised the ball was round about on his pads and just got a straight bat onto it and played it away between square leg and mid wicket. Typical shot of his. He gets a couple of runs, and Lancashire have clearly got to get rid of Cook. They can't allow Cook to get a 40 here, put it that way. He's 9 for no wicket.
He's still Essex's best batsman. He's going to come closer to, he won't get there, but he'll come closer to 1,000 runs in the season. I think he needed 130 for 1,000 at the start of the game. He got 40 yesterday, so he's going to get up over 900, and without him being quite the player he was a few years ago, he's still got a brilliant ability to remain at the crease while others are long since back in the hutch.
Kemar Roach has got Adam Lythe out at the Oval. That's a big wicket, 14 for 1 Yorkshire. Here's Cook just covering up, playing defensively into the offside. Nice technical shot, just head over the ball and played very smoothly up into the offside, and there is no run. Just an individual outstanding performance to mention after. Just another comment, Paul?
I was just going to say, of course, the downside of having someone as good as Cook and Gooch before him is that when you got Gooch out, and it's true with Cook, you know, there tends to be a massive uplift in the opposition's spirits and energy.
Absolutely, and that is what Lancashire will be hoping for here, as Cook gets one which bounces, but is predictably able to leave it alone here. No problem about worrying about that one going back into the stumps. He's just making sure he's there in case it does, but looks fairly comfortable. 3rd place Glamorgan against 4th place Derbyshire, both still in with a chance for promotion in Division 2, where Middlesex to slip up. Glamorgan are still batting 445 for 5 at Cardiff, and David Lloyd is 239 not out.
Terrific effort.
That's his career best, and coming at a very good time for Glamorgan, that from David Lloyd.
Will Williams continuing from the River End. Paul Newton here with Nick Gledhill and Scott Reed, and Williams around the wicket from the River End. This is clipped off the pads crisply to mid-wicket. There's no run. The score's 9 for no wicket. Essex requiring 98 to win. Michael Alexander comes back. Just wondering now, Paul, if Snater's innings at Headingley has now altered your view of him in regard to the perceived ability to dig in as such. Not being facetious, it may have been a one-off, unless you deem that he has that side to the game in his locker. I didn't see any of it. I just listened. Yeah, I would point out he scored at nearly 2 runs a ball at Headingley, so I wouldn't call it digging in, as Williams is in bowls, takes Brown on the pad, peel for LBW for me, going down leg side, so I didn't expect to see the finger raised there. 9 for no wicket. Yes, he faced, I think, only about 37 deliveries for 65 not out, and in fact the man who kept him company so well for over an hour was Ben Allison, who actually faced a lot more deliveries than Shane did, because Snater frequently got a single off the first ball of an over and trusted his partner, but it's his judgment of the ball to go after and the one not to go after that was so impressive. Cook has edged the next ball down into the ground and past the diving third slip. Sorry, Brown is the man on strike, and he gets back for a couple there. So Brown moves along to 4. Cook at the non-striker's end has 6. There's been a leg by, and Essex requiring 98 to win, or 11 for no wicket in the 4th over.
I mentioned Shane Snater's batting average and bowling average. Actually, his bowling average has probably improved a bit now, being roughly the same yesterday. I'm just interested to compare his batting average for his career to Graham Napier.
Williams bowls down leg side. He's not quite got his line right at all from this river end, and that's disappeared for 4 leg byes. It just nibbled the pad of Brown on its way very quickly to the fine leg boundary. If the wicketkeeper couldn't get there, and the ball had ricocheted too far to be within his reach, George Bell, who's had a thoroughly good game here, 16 and 24 in a very low scoring match, and some excellent keeping. He's standing up to Brown here, but Essex 15 for no wicket now require a further 83. And rather too many extras coming from a Lancashire point of view, as Williams is in again, around the wicket from the river end, bowls to Brown, and Brown has edged this, and it didn't carry to slip, but it was not at all a confident shot from Brown, and he remains on 4, Cook on 6, 15 for no wicket, target 98.
So Graham Napier, if you think of him as an Essex, famous Essex number 8, I mean, his career average is actually roughly what Snater's average is this season with the bat. It's better, his career average is better than Snater's overall, but Snater's is on an upward trajectory, you would say. But it's an interesting comparison.
All day long, you would say. It's an absolute revelation this season with bat and ball as Williams bowls to Brown, and Brown returns it whence it came, 15 for no wicket, and Williams, who bowled so well yesterday from the Hayes close end, just hasn't quite looked the same bowler from the river end. Maybe he's not as happy bowling to left-handers, but I don't think that's really the explanation. I think he just hasn't quite got his radar right so far today, and in consequence Essex have just been given 1 or 2 early Christmas presents to help them on their way here, which you would say Lancashire can't afford, but maybe they can, because Essex do have a habit of collapsing.
Snater's batting average this season 27. His bowling average has come down pretty quickly in the course of this game to around about 23.6. He's got 33 wickets, and maybe power to add next week, as here Cook plays off the back foot towards cover. Bailey's first ball of his new over. The sun trying to come through. The floodlights are still on, but batting generally has been a bit more comfortable. And I suppose from Essex's point of view, if they were to win this game by 7 or 8 wickets, they might just be able to turn around and say, what's all the fuss about? But I still think there is cause to fuss.
Oh no, there's absolutely no doubt about that. 26 wickets in a day, and you spotted yesterday the key factor, the inconsistent bounce, as
here is Bailey bowling, and that's a good delivery, and Cook is playing and missing at that. Goodness me, that was through him.
Yes, and it was one of those where you even wondered, was there a slight feather there? It was very, very close to taking the edge. Excellent bowling from Tom Bailey, who bowled so well in the first innings. Another email from Michael Alexander, who says was thinking of Gavaskar, but he batted with panache quite a lot. I'm thinking more of those pained and tortured innings, or in Mackenzie's case, as mentioned, a certain type of correctness. Mark Boucher had a beautiful correctness.
Here's Bailey bowling. It's on the pads of Cook, not the right place. Gets away with it because it goes straight out to backward square leg, but a touch lucky there, because that was not where you want to bowl to Alistair Cook. And fortunately it went straight to Balderson.
And regulation piece of fielding, but well executed nonetheless. So Lancashire would like to get among the wickets sooner rather than later here, that's for sure, and I don't doubt their capacity on this pitch certainly of doing so. Here's
Bailey again going round the wicket bowls. That's one that's drawn Cook into a stroke. It's outside the off stump. He's played slightly loosely at that by his standards. Would have regretted it if he'd edged that, because it was a ball that in the end he probably didn't have to play at, but did so, but has got away with it. And Essex 15 for no wicket, chasing 98. They'll be fairly happy with things at the moment.
Our esteemed Lancashire colleague Scott Reed will be rejoining us in just over 5 minutes' time, and he's done his midday piece for BBC Radio Manchester.
Bailey, who was excellent in the first innings. Can he replicate that here? Lancashire needing a wicket now, as this is outside the off stump and left alone by Cook. And certainly it looks like the pitch was at its worst for batting in that period towards the end of yesterday, and that could be a defining period of the game.
Yes, and I think it was the, according to people from both sides, in Essex's case I spoke to Simon Harmer yesterday, it was that period under the lights that proved so difficult. Now, you can say the floodlights are on now, but they're not having anything like the effect that was the case in the gloaming yesterday evening.
Yeah, they probably don't even need to be on at the moment. Two slips waiting as Bailey bowls, and a play shot of the back foot of quality from Alistair Cook between backward point and cover, and away to the square cover boundary for 4. And that's a very strong shot of his. Just a back foot force just in front of square on the offside. Seen him play that so many times. That's a slightly ominous sign for Lancashire. 19 for no wicket, with Cook looking comfortable on 10. Of course, he made a very important 40 in the first innings. Brown 4. Nick Brown would desperately love to bat through here, as I say, after a few low scores. But yeah, Lancashire certainly needing a wicket. Essex 19 for no wicket, target of 98. 79 to go.
Do you know, if the game had started this morning, I don't think we'd be talking about the pitch very much at all. You know, it hasn't behaved sort of outrageously at all today. Yesterday was a different story altogether. Occasionally a ball would stop in the pitch and the ball would loop up from the unsuspecting batsman's shoulder of the bat. And here's another very nice shot, this time from Nick Brown. It's slightly misfielded by Bohannon in the covers, and he takes the way off the ball, but should really have prevented any run. They get a single, and Essex have moved along to 20 without loss, of which Brown with that shot has 5. Cook comes in to strike on 10. He's looked in fairly decent nick actually out there so far this morning. 20 for no wicket, needing 98 to win.
Middlesex starting 12 points clear of third place Glamorgan. They're second in Division 2, and they're starting to get among the Leicestershire wickets. 297 for Middlesex, and Leicestershire 37 for 4 in reply in that one.
Williams round the wicket again. He's straight onto leg stump again. He just can't quite get the radar right from this river end, and that is another single to Cook down to long leg as Parkinson fields. 21 for no wicket, a further 77 needed for an Essex victory, and at the moment they have all 10 available to them, all 10 wickets. 11 to Cook, 5 to Brown, who now comes back into strike.
So we know that the First Division is going to replicate as it is this year, at least for the 2023 season, but it could be, of course, severely cut back in 2024 from what we're understanding is being offered to the counties. I say offered.
And Brown turns the next ball to Miller on Tom Bailey. There's no run, 21 for no wickets, 77 more runs required.
So Middlesex, if they can get back into Division 1 next year, which I say they should beat Leicestershire in this game, and then obviously one more game to play, and then perhaps will give themselves a chance of re-establishing themselves, and as they've been trying to do ever since they won the championship in 2016, Paul, but with varying degrees of non-success.
Yes, absolutely. It's been a sad sight, actually, as Williams is in and bowls to Brown, and Brown's hammered this one. He doesn't actually time it as well as it looked as if he had, so it won't go for 4, but Bohannon will pick it up about 5 yards short of the cover boundary in front of the pavilion, and the score to 23 for no wicket, 75 more required. Yes, I mean, to me, Nick, bringing it down, not even just to 12, but to 10 games and having 3 16 conferences, I don't like it personally. I don't think most of the people I've spoken to do. And what are you going to do financially if you only play 10 games? Members surely can't be expected to pay the same amount of money, or players paid the same wages, and they're not going to like that as the next ball is played down to mid-on. And I do hope that spectators and players' opinions will count just as much as anybody else's.
And I understand that they're looking to keep the blast as it is in terms, and more Friday night games. That's a sop to the counties to try and make them agree to the entire package, no question about that, because that will please the counties, Friday night games and still having 14 matches. But I have to say that 22 short form games is enough for anyone, I think, really, if you're playing in the 100 as well. Could be even more than that.
Williams bowls to Brown, last ball of the over, and Brown leaves it to the good offices of the upstanding George Bell. 23 for no wicket at the completion of 6 overs, with 11 to Cook and 7 to Brown. Means that Essex require a further 75 to win. We're now just past midday, so there's about half an hour to go to lunch, and I think we can now safely say that the game will go into the afternoon session. But at the moment, you'd have to say the pitch looks relatively blameless.
Yeah, and Essex will be hoping that that's the lasting impression of the pitch, but I have to say that it's something that it's the number one thing they have to sort out for next year, Paul. You just can't have a season like this where half the games you've no chance of result, and half the games you're worrying about if there's going to be sanctions on the pitch. And here's Cook playing that wide of the square leg umpire for a single down towards deep square leg. I mean, they've got obviously the autumn and the winter to look at it, but I think it's a major issue. 24 for no wicket.
We have a lengthy email from the Grumbler, which I'm going to leave with you, Nick, because I'm about to depart as soon as Scott's done his piece. But thank you, Grumbler, for coming in with your points of view, and indeed you will be the 4th guest of the Cricket Society meeting in January, and look forward to that as Nick Brown is about to take strike to Tom Bailey.
Bailey again is into his 4th over now, looking for his first wicket, as indeed Lancashire are. Brown leaves it alone and on its way through to Bell. So Lancashire at the moment looking for the inspiration that a wicket might give them. When you've got a target of 98 and 24 for no wicket, it looks a little bit gloomy, but if they can get a couple quickly.
Yeah, we've got Bailey bowling over the wicket to the left-hander, which I actually like to see, but why isn't there a third slip when you need 10 wickets?
That's right. It's obviously they're mindful of conceding runs, but I think that third attacking option would be very useful, and Brown off the back foot plays up into the covers, so there's no run. A bit more bright now. There's actually some blue sky over the apartments to the left, which is nice, although still mainly cloudy over the ground, and the floodlights probably fairly superfluous at the moment, but they're still on.
The forecast was actually quite good for today. We were meant to be watching this in glorious Technicolor, and by which I mean sunshine, and there's been barely a hint of it so far, but there is now, as Nick has said, a developing area of blue sky away to our left. I'm not sure if that's where the weather's coming from, but hopefully after lunch we will move up about 5 degrees and get some sun.
Lancashire 73 all out. Essex need 98 to win, and Brown will leave this one alone with fine judgment. Ball just nipping in slightly from outside the off stump, but Lancashire still struggling to make this first breakthrough. Yes, the Grumbler saying that he fears that the Essex are losing the PR battle over this pitch and a sanction is looming, but the context and motivation are vital. And he mentioned that against Northants last year, not only did Northants bat poorly, but Essex obviously didn't. There wasn't a lot riding on the game. Essex didn't bat particularly well, and there were some obviously low scores on both sides, and 3 innings match, and it didn't last beyond midday on day 2 as his defensive shot from Brown back down the pitch, and there's no run. And 2018-19, most games went to 3 days with often 250 v 200 in the first innings, and the wicket was competitive and entertaining. Yeah, that's right. There is a balance that Essex can strike here, but they've got to find it again, because we just say one thing they can't afford next year is a repeat of the extremes of this year with the nature of the pitches. You talk about the Hampshire match, and of course there were more runs in the Hampshire game, 3 scores of over 200, and Hampshire were close to chasing almost 300 to win. Here's an appeal for LBW, and Brown is out. Bailey gets the breakthrough. It's a ball that I think has just nipped in from off stump. It's a wicket, but Lancashire desperately needed. And I think in the end he's just praying down the wrong line. Just a little bit of movement. There was indications of some from Bailey in the over. And Brown facing up to that one. We get a replay here. Yeah, I think it's just basically, it's just caught him in front. It's just nipped back into him. I think it's taken him on the front pad, but it looks as though it's going on middle and off. I don't think too many arguments about that. Important wicket for Lancashire to take to give themselves some momentum with just 98 to defend, but 24 for 1, Scott. Welcome back.
Hi, Nick. Yeah, they've need a little rattle of wickets in, aren't they, just to give themselves a possibility of trying to cause a few concerns in the Essex dressing room. But a nice bright start by Cook and by Brown. It's 24 on the board. It's kind of got the team going, hasn't it, towards that 98 to win.
Yeah, and the pitch has played, well, let's just say less unpredictably. That's might be one phrase today. as I say, it's still got time to cause a few problems. But yeah, Essex, as I say, this is something they've got to sort out for next season. Obviously, 4 very flat, lifeless pitches with barely barely getting into the third innings, and we've had basically Essex beating Gloucestershire, a game I didn't see much of, but there was a difference in sort of the overall quality of the two sides, which was an impact there. The Hampshire game, there were more runs, say 3 scores of over 200. But Essex, I think, it might be good from a PR point of view if they were to win this by 7 or 8 wickets and say, what's all the fuss about? But that might be easier said than done. So a wicket for Bailey. We've got Wesley in, 24 for 1, and Bailey 1 for 9 in 4 overs. Williams just struggling a little bit from the river end compared to the Hayes close end, none for 10. It's 24 for 1, target 98.
Yes, we've got George Bell, the wicketkeeper, standing up behind the stumps. Couple of slips in place as well. Cook on strike. Williams around the wicket to Cook. Squeezed away into the offside, just behind square for 1 run. Bohannon scampering out from cover, and Groff coming up from the boundary at deep point. Bohannon gets there first. The score moves on to 25 for 1.
And yes, you mentioned the grumbler. The Hampshire pitch, it maybe got a bit better as it went on, which made it potentially viable for Hampshire to chase close to 300. And obviously there were some comments, not all of them reported after the game, about their view on the pitch. And you're commended, Scott, for not going down the same route. And you say the grumbler, you had no problem with Glenn Chappell's words last night. You thought they're pretty accurate. The pitch isn't great, and the worst you've seen here in a few years. And I can't disagree with any of that. It's not been the ideal pitch, for a 4-day game.
Wesley on strike for the first time. With Williams from the river end over the wicket and bowling. And this is run down to third man. Croft chasing after it. Wesley will certainly come back for a second. Doesn't reach the boundary. He's off the mark with that. Wesley gets going. He's 2 not out. 27 for 1. A target of 98 to win, so needing 71 more.
You're talking about the fact that when Nasser Hussain and Mike Atherton even have on-air arguments about basically a points deduction way back at the end of the late 80s. So, people involved at the time, I suppose, still maybe an emotive issue.
Williams to Wesley. It's left, a ball that's wide of off stump and taken by the keeper. No run.
And you think that that's the only time that a points deduction has cost a title. I think you're referring to Southend 89. There, the grumbler, but correct me if I'm wrong. And you think that some fans, now there was some comments on social media from supporters of other counties saying Essex really ought to be deducted points because we were penalised for X, and there's certainly quite a lot what I saw if you put in Essex points deduction or Essex points on the social media search last night, there was a bit of that going around.
Williams to Wesley, shuffling across his stumps and not offering a shot. Ball goes past and through to the gloves of Bell, and there's no run. And
you say that obviously that Harmer, obviously excellent figures at Chelmsford, and obviously some of the pitches he goes to away from home, Old Trafford being an exception, but a lot of the time the pitches are deliberately going to be ones that do not give him the best opportunity.
Williams to Wesley, that beats the forward press and actually goes into and then balloons out of the gloves of George Bell. No run.
And you also mentioned how good his record is at Chelmsford compared to other spinners, and which is quite an important thing. Obviously Liam Dawson did get that big haul in the Hampshire match, but generally I think that's a fair point, that he has outperformed opposition spinners over a long period of time in his career here at Chelmsford. You think the last 30 minutes last night might have been maybe the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of pushing Essex towards a penalty?
Williams to Wesley, flicked out towards the leg side, picked up by Bohannon, and there's no run. End of the 8th over of the Essex second innings. 27 for 1, needed further 71 to win.
But as it is, of course, Lancashire have had their own recent points deduction, and they are becoming quite a feature of the various competitions. Of course, Leicestershire were deprived, and I think it's had a big look at their performance in the last few weeks. Leicestershire, they're missing out on the on the Blast quarter-finals, where they'd had some very, very good results, beating Nottinghamshire, I think, in a result that really shook Nottinghamshire. And they actually improved Notts towards the end of the group stage, but the damage had been done there. And Leicestershire had a very good Blast campaign, but of course they were then penalised right at the death, weren't they?
They were. Yep.
So there were some other people have had some penalties this season. 27 for 1, target of 98, and round the wicket here. This is played by Cook off Bailey, starting his 5th over, and it's played up into the offside. And of course, Cook is the big wicket that you feel Lancashire would love to get in before lunch.
I think that Leicester points deduction that cost them qualification, didn't it? That cost them a place in the quarter-finals of the Blast this year.
It did, yeah. They were all set. They were all set. I mean, we were looking at the permutations of who Essex might be playing with. Oh, it might be playing Leicestershire, and that'd be nice. Maybe go back to Grace Road, and of course it all came undone as Yorkshire got their place. As here's Bailey bowling, and this is played off the back foot down towards deep backward square leg for a single. And I thought at one point there was a possibility that Yorkshire could get into both knockout stages of both competitions by default, because they ended up playing on a very ropey pitch at Chesterfield, where I think Derbyshire almost defended 100, and Yorkshire won by 1 wicket. It was part of the game, isn't it? And made for a very interesting contest. But that pitch was probably a bit like this one in terms of what it was offering to the bowlers. Chesterfield often very flat, of course.
I mean, Kent's victory against Lancashire in the final group game of the One Day Cup got Kent into the knockout stage at Yorkshire's expense, and obviously go on to win the competition.
Yeah. Bailey bowls, and that's played by Wesley. Good looking shot off the back foot. Oh, I've got an ally for my view about 4-day tests in England. I stress in England. Duke's ball, better drainage. You can start at 10:30, 10:40. Obviously there are issues in London, I know, with expensive train tickets, but you can easily start at 10:40. Nasser Hussain was saying, why on earth weren't we starting that last test match at 10:30 when you were going off a bad light every day at 5:30? But Mike, an ally for me on 4-day tests in England. You saying county cricket 3 days, as Paul was suggesting, maybe mid-season. It's Bailey bowls and Wesley plays that back down the pitch. We're not going to see 3-day county cricket, sadly. I don't think we're ever going to see it again. But yes, it would have been one way. If you're going to play a sort of like a series of games in July with the festival grounds, you could have had 3-day cricket then. But sadly that's not to be. And making the women's tests five days, it looks like 5-day tests will continue for a while yet, but under Brendan McCullum's tenure, I suspect the argument for them will get weaker in England. As Bailey bowls, this is played defensively into the offside, and there's no run. I know that Ben Stokes likes to get rid of the draw as a possibility in Test cricket, but the draw does have its place sometimes, and there have been some very good games that have ended in draws. And obviously you can always get a bit of rain around, but I don't know, you look back at the stats over the last few years, and I reckon 352 overs is enough to get a test match done in England these days, if you make the side bowl for 90 overs. You see, that's the thing, that's the critical thing. 28 for 1, Bailey bowls, and that's played off the back foot by Wesley, but he doesn't get it past mid-wicket. It was a good shot. To be annoyed because he hit that pretty well, but it was a nice piece of fielding. And basically that was probably saving a boundary there from Bohannon, but Lancashire could do with a wicket here. It was a decent over from Bailey, but they need another wicket before lunch, particularly out of Cook on 14, Wesley 2, 28 for 1. Yes, some colleagues that we both work with who I greatly admire, even they have sometimes used a lazy excuse. You've got to have 5-day tests because they can't bowl the overs. And I just think there is an argument about people are paid for their money and paid the money, and if you have 2-hour 10-minute sessions and an extra half hour, you're only requiring a side to bowl 14 overs an hour to get through 90 in a day, and surely that's not too big an ask. Anyway, that's just my thought on that. 2 to Wesley, 14 Cook, 28 for 1.
First bowling change as well sees Will Williams coming out of the attack to replaced by George Balderson. Williams 4 overs for 13. Bailey with the only breakthrough so far for Lancashire. 1 for 10 from 5 for him. So Balderson from the river end of the ground with Alistair Cook on strike. Got a couple of slips with the keeper standing up behind the stumps. There's a fine leg, deep square leg. He's around the wicket. Cook plays forward in defence and there's no run. Mid wicket, mid on, mid off, and a cover as well.
We mentioned Luke Wood in passing yesterday, but we haven't had a chance yet to reflect on his overall performance yesterday, which got him a man of the match actually in that first T20 in Pakistan. 3 for 24 in his 4 overs. Luke Wood, as England won by 6 wickets, played an important part in pegging them back.
Balderson to Cook. Oh, has he been caught? Oh, I don't know. Are they asking for a? You know what they're asking for here? Stumping or caught down the leg side?
Or is his leg bail been removed?
Oh,
I think I'm looking at that leg.
good.
Now, I'm just wondering if that's gone.
So he's been.
He
bowled.
might have been bowled. That's a real commentator's nightmare, isn't he? It basically it's gone through him. I've got a feeling it might have taken that leg bail, but we shall see in just a moment. So anyway.
Umpire looked to the square leg umpire for confirmation as to what went on there, and now they're radioing up towards the scorers.
Here's our replay.
To give it. The replay will tell us. Oh, it's deflected off his. I think it's deflected off his back pad onto the stump.
Yeah. Now that's the sort of bit of luck that you need to get rid of Alistair Cook just short of lunch when you're defending 98, 28 for 2. That might just be the spark that Lancashire need. A little bit of fortune there. It's an unlucky dismissal for Alistair Cook. That leg bail was the sign. Something had happened there, but it's actually deflected off Cook's leg, I think, and gone off his pad and gone onto the stump. But yeah, it's fascinating to see that it's gone off the back pad and rolled onto a leg stump.
Yes, a bit unusual, isn't it? I don't know whether Balderson was appealing for the LBW, for a caught behind. He was appealing for all sorts there, and then he saw the bail had been dislodged. It's an unusual and unfortunate way for Alistair Cook to lose his wicket, but bowled by George Balderson. A deflection off the pad, the ball ricocheting back onto the leg stump. It's hit his front pad. I wonder if it's gone deflected off the front pad, past the back leg, and then onto the leg stump.
It might have actually hit the. Yeah, you're right. But it's an unfortunate dismissal, but it's one that Lancashire will take at this stage.
Yeah, without doubt.
At least Cook's consolation is not a flat pitch.
Balderson in and bowls, flashed away to mid wicket. Another one's gone. 2 in 2.
Wow. Now that is interesting because Dan Lawrence, he will not be too pleased with himself, and it's just a classic case of a little bit of fortune for the breakthrough, and then the next guy in England international, as Cook of course has been, it's straight to sort of wide mid wicket. Well. Lancashire 28 for 3. They were looking for inspiration, and my word, they found it, Scott.
Yeah, Dan Lawrence chipping it straight into the hands of Will Williams at mid wicket. And it was it was catching practice really for Williams. It was just flicked to him at a nice height, and Dan Lawrence goes for naught. George Balderson's on a hat trick, and Essex are now 28 for 3.
And Balderson's taken wickets with the second and third ball of the over. So this is now what's looking like a decent bowling change, I have to say. Will Williams, I thought, not quite at his best compared to how he bowled from the Hayes Close end yesterday, but maybe I think the next time he comes on, I think it'd be a good idea for him to bowl from that end where he looked more comfortable yesterday. He looked very, very good yesterday. But at the moment, it's George Balderson coming on as a change and making a big impact. And I'll tell you what, that's a really big wicket. I mean, Cook and Lawrence in this sort of situation. Cushy's still relatively inexperienced. Critchley and Rossington, very capable, just short of what you'd expect from them this season in terms of their overall run output. But maybe it will be down to Shane Snater at the end, we'll see. But you still fancy Essex, but if they can nip another one before lunch, well, I think could go wide open.
So it's 28 for 3. Still 70 needed. 2 wickets in 2 balls for George Balderson. Matt Critchley comes out to face the hat-trick ball. Keeper standing up, couple of slips in place, 3 on the offside field, 3 on the leg side, with a long leg as well. Here's Balderson to Critchley. Oh, he's bowled him! He's got a hat-trick! Balderson peels away in celebration. He's been comprehensively bowled, 2 stumps out the ground. It's a hat-trick for George Balderson, and this game's had just about everything. And Essex are 4 down, and it's game on, 28 for 4.
Amazing, Scott. And so often when you get those hat-trick deliveries, the bowler doesn't execute it right, or it goes down the leg side and think, oh, I've missed my chance. Well, what about that as a delivery? It's sort of a block hole, looked a block hole Yorker to me. He just played round it. And all credit to Balderson. I mean, he realised that basically, you pitch it up, it might just go straight through, and I think that's what happened. It's just a fantastic piece of bowling, and just looking at Critchley there, he's just basically played round it. It doesn't appear to have done an awful lot. He might have kept low. And 2 stumps. He has the pleasure of seeing 2 stumps taken out of the ground there, Critchley. Well, haven't seen many hat tricks live. How many have you seen in your time on the commentaries?
That's my 3rd hat trick this summer.
Really? So yes, they tended to pass me by.
I've had 2 in the 100.
Quite rude. Oh well, you see, that's not. Yeah, I suppose. That's just at the end of a 100 innings, you sort of half expect one taking the last over. But when you're defending 98 and you're coming on as a change bowler and you've taken a wicket with the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th ball of the over. This is quite something from Balderson, and really well done to him there for executing the plan to perfection with the hat-trick ball. And it's one of those situations where I suspect Kushi was nowhere near being prepared to bat before lunch, and he's had to sort of get his pads and sort it out. And he's under a bit of pressure now. So it's a good test for him. It's wide open again here. 98 for target, 28 for 4.
3 on the spin for George Balderson. A first-class career hat-trick for Balderson, scoring his maiden one-day century earlier on this season. It was his first century for Lancashire as well.
Give him more than one slip.
Kushi on strike. Here is Balderson in. Looks to drive and does, without too much timing. The ball bouncing back down the pitch and stopped by Balderson off his own bowling. No run, 28 for 4. Essex, 1 ball left at the 10th and about 5 or 6 minutes before lunch on the 2nd day, needing a further 70 from the stage.
Of course, the pitch might have played a bit of a role with a miscued shot from Lawrence, and then of course maybe that last one as well.
Into Kushi. It's a wide ball which is left and taken by the keeper. That's the end of the over. A triple wicket maiden for George Balderson. 28 for 4 after 10, and a hat-trick for the Lancashire all-rounder.
Yeah, well, please you got that over, Scott, because that was a good one for Lancashire, to put it mildly. And this is, well, the thing about these low-scoring games. I've managed to avoid a lot of the high-scoring draws here. Been fortunate at sort of Hampshire game and this game, so I've trod a very careful path in what I've seen here at Chelmsford this season. But tell you what, these are terrific for the fans. They're really getting into this. This is absolutely top stuff. 28 for 4, a target 98. Tom Wesley now, he's got to play an important role. He's got the inexperienced Kushi. He's watched everything going on at the other end. What can he do? Bailey 1 for 10 in 5 overs. Bowles, and Wesley just comes forward and steers up into the offside, and it goes to backward point, and there is no run. Well, it's been another dramatic morning, and in the end Lancashire's morning, because they're probably relatively happy with the last 4 wickets taking the score to 73. It might sound like small reward, but at the moment even that little contribution from Bell staying in last night looking quite important, and runs from the low order as well this morning. And here's Wesley getting a ball that's just on his pads. He tries to work it away into the onside, just rolls out to mid-wicket, and there's no run. So just joined us, a hat-trick to George Balderson, and it's not a bad hat-trick in the sense you've got Cook, Lawrence and Critchley, who of course was not quite of the quality of the other 2, but he's certainly been albeit in a limited overs format in the 100, he's been getting runs recently. But 28 for 4, Bailey bowls, and oh goodness me, that straightens on Wesley, and he makes a late adjustment. Fortunate there, because if that got past the bat, he would have been plumb LBW. 28 for 4, target 98, and it's riveting stuff here. David Lloyd 281 not out. We'll keep an eye on this now. David Lloyd 281 all out. Glamorgan 495 for 5 against Derbyshire in that promotion battle in Division 2. 28 for 4. And Wesley clipping that one away off his pads down towards fine leg will get a single. Means he might be facing Balderson fairly soon. But Feroz Kouchi batted pleasantly yesterday. But this is a real test for him. Yorkshire, after losing Adam Lythe early, 41 for 1 in reply to Surrey's 333. Good performance by the Yorkshire Seamers this morning to wrap things up in the Surrey first innings. Patterson getting 4 wickets, code 3. We're pretty pleased with that this morning. 29 for 4 here. And again, sort of just straightens a bit on Kouchi and runs down towards third man. 5 Live Sports Extra back with us. And well, it has all been happening, it's fair to say, because we've got a target of 98 here for Lancashire, and they were going along, for Essex rather, and they were going along reasonably well with 28 on the board. And then George Balderson gets a hat-trick with the second, third and fourth balls of his first over. It's now 30 for 4, 3 to Wesley and 1 to Kouchi. 30 for 4 with target 98. And here is Bailey again. Bowls, again, that just keeps a bit low, and Wesley plays it pretty well in the end, up into the offside. And there's no run. And it had got to the stage where Lancashire needed something to happen, Scott, before lunch, and my word, it did.
Yeah, the first wicket of Alistair Cook was an unusual one, because it deflected off his front pad, went between his legs, and then ricocheted onto the leg stump. It was bowled, but the ball took at least one, if not maybe potentially a second deflection off the back pad before clipping the leg stump. So it was an unusual dismissal to get Sir Alistair Cook. Then Dan Lawrence, his second wicket. Lawrence first ball just chipping it to mid-wicket for a pretty routine catch. And then Critchley, the third wicket, well, he was pretty comprehensively bowled 2 stumps out the ground. Here comes Balderson in, and that's worked out to backward point, and there's no run. So Alistair Cook, Dan Lawrence and Matt Critchley, the victims of a George Balderson hat-trick. The game has had all sorts here, and maybe it's in for another twist, because when Nick Brown and Alistair Cook were batting, it looked pretty routine run chase. Balderson brings Kouchi forward.
Yes.
There's all sorts happening as the fielders around the batter are all oohing and ahhing as he defends to mid-wicket. There's no run.
We should say to our 5 Sports Extra listeners that Glenn Chappell, very much, as they may be aware, voiced his concerns about the pitch. And actually, it hadn't been playing too badly this morning, but I suspect there was some involvement, particularly Lawrence hitting it straight to wide mid-wicket first ball.
Balderson again, forward goes Kouchi defending, bat in front of his pad, keeper standing up right behind the stumps, no room for him to manoeuvre really, just blocks it back down the pitch and there's no run.
And Critchley losing his off and middle stump to a ball that was well pitched up, but what it was a perfectly executed hat-trick delivery from Balderson, extremely impressive, and he's going to do some, have to go some to beat that. That really was a memorable moment for him.
30 for 4, shuffles his way in, bowls again, Kouchi playing and missing. And there's no run. It feels like there's something happening with almost every delivery now. It
just seems as though there's a flick of a switch and the pitch is misbehaving again, which I think Lancashire should be very pleased about, because it was playing a bit too well for their liking, it seemed, at the start of the Essex innings. But 30 for 4, 98 looks a fair way away at the moment.
68 still needed. Kouchi waiting and leaving this next delivery from Balderson, which is wide of off stump and to the gloves of George Bell, and there's no run.
And just a reminder for BBC Essex listeners that around the wicket on at 6 o'clock this evening, reaction to the conclusion of Essex Lancashire. Victoria has decided that there's no way this game is going to go beyond day 2, and she's probably right.
Final ball of the over might be the last one before lunch as well. Kouchi in behind, defends away into the offside. Lancashire sprinting round, desperate to get another one in before the lunch break. 30 for 4. It's still 68 needed to win.
And also the Essex wicketkeeper Adam Wheater talking about his decision to retire. We'll also hear from club cricketers in Essex who've been finding out what grassroots players think of the state of the game, and speaking to the Essex Cricket Society. So Victoria presenting around the wicket at 6 o'clock this evening. I'll be chipping in on that. And 30 for 4. We have, I think, now 1 over to go before lunch. It'll be bowled by Bailey, 1 for 12 in 6 overs. Balderson with a triple wicket maiden and a maiden, 3 for none in 2 overs. And here is Wesley playing that one off his pads, uppishly, but it just goes to square leg on the bounce, and there's no run. So around the wicket this evening, and yeah, 30 for 4. It's a dramatic situation. A target of 98. The game could go either way. One wide slip. The second slip quite wide. First slip orthodox. And here's a nice stroke by Wesley, away for probably 3. It could even go all the way for 4. This is being chased back to the middle wicket boundary, and it won't be stopped. And that's a bit of a relief for Essex supporters. Wesley could be key here. He's settled in pretty well, playing the ball nicely away into the onside. He's not found the gap so far, but he did there, hitting it between square leg and mid wicket, and hit it away for 4. 34 for 4. And yeah, certainly it's been a remarkable half hour before lunch this. Hitherto it had been fairly orthodox cricket, with Lancashire's last 4 wickets adding 50 odd, and Brown and Cook making a good start. But again, maybe some batsman error in play as well, as here's one that just nips back in from outside the off stump, and Wesley leaves it alone. John on the email certainly thinking that batsman error has been a key element this morning rather than the nature of the pitch. But certainly it remains difficult to bat on, but feeling that Lancashire maybe have been helped a little bit by some mistakes by the Essex batsman. Obviously Lawrence hitting his first ball straight to wide mid wicket was a real surprise, as here Wesley does get one that is well pitched up, and he's looking to drive it. It just takes the bottom of the bat and rolls just back at a square on the offside, and there's no run. So another dramatic session in this game. Has seen 4 of them now. Essex needing a further 64 runs after Lancashire were bowled out for 73, but they were 7 for 6, so everything is relative. The low order did pretty well. Wesley comes forward and plays defensively back down the pitch, and there's no run. George Bell, who's impressed behind the stumps and with the bat in this match, was first to go, bowled by Snater for 24, and Snater had Tom Bailey caught by Lawrence at mid-on, misjudgment from Bailey trying to clear mid-on, didn't get enough bat in it. And Snater finishing with 6 for 10 in 8 overs. Cook got rid of Hartley for 23, and Harmer dismissed Parkinson for 2, 73 all out. So Snater 6 for 10 in 8 overs. And here Wesley off the back foot forces it up into the covers. It goes up as far as that fielder, but not beyond, and that will be the last ball before lunch. And in this session, this Essex second innings, a comparatively sedate start in the pursuit of 98 by Brown and Cook. The total got to 24 before Brown was LBW to Bailey. Looked pretty out, that one. He was out for 7 from 25 balls, and then Balderson coming on with a score on 28, his second, third and fourth balls providing a hat-trick for him. Alistair Cook, a curious dismissal, the ball appearing to hit the front pad and roll onto the leg stump, dislodging the leg bail. He went for 14, and Lawrence hitting Balderson straight to Williams at wide mid wicket next ball, and Critchley losing his off and middle stump to the following delivery. Cushy has 1, and Wesley has settled in well for 7. The target is 98, 64 required. Essex are 34 for 4. That is lunch on day 2 here at the county ground, and well, it'll probably be the final session of the match. It'll be I think as dramatic as the previous 4. Join us for it at 1:10.
and score 455 runs in first-class cricket. This has included match-winning and match-saving innings across the season, with games against Yorkshire, Lancashire and Hampshire coming to mind. He made his debut for Essex in May 2018 against Hampshire in the Royal London One Day Cup, and has since taken 116 wickets across all formats, with best bowling figures of 7 for 98, which came against Nottinghamshire last year. Please offer, like me, your congratulations to Shane.
Yeah. On you.
Welcome back to the final session of this game. We are guaranteed at least 6 further deliveries, and well, you may as well be mentally prepared, ladies and gentlemen. And 34 for 4, 98 the target, 64 to win. We're just a little late getting going after lunch, simply because the first session went on 3 minutes over. I was surprised they bowled the final over, I have to say, because yesterday they were very much starting 2 or 3 minutes early and finishing 2 or 3 early at the end of a session. However, the umpires are now out in the middle. So the 2 Essex batsmen, Wesley 7 and Cushy 1, and the Lancashire fielders, having had their huddle, are now taking the middle, and George Balderson, after his heroic hat-trick, the first 3 balls of a bowling change actually. How many hat-tricks that have been taken have been the first 3 balls of a bowling change? Well, only a small percentage of the total number of hat-tricks, I would suggest, but that is the way of it, and he is going to resume after lunch. I'm Paul Newton, with me is Scott Reed, and I think we have to say, fasten your seatbelts.
Well, yeah, it's been that type of game, hasn't it?
Over to you.
Here is Balderson then, straight after lunch. Bowling to Cushy, who defends up to mid-on. There's no run. It was a really, I mean, aside from the hat-trick, sounds ridiculous to say, doesn't it? But the hat-trick in isolation was obviously a brilliant moment for Balderson. But either side of that, he bowled superbly. That little spell just up to lunch to Cushy was a really testing spell.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A bit like Snater, actually, who also very nearly got a hat-trick.
34 for 4. Balderson again, bringing Cushy forward. Ball goes past the edge and through to Bell, who is standing up right behind the stumps and takes it and then flicks off the bails. And
the Lancashire choir are at their best here. It's a bit like a posse backing up the sheriff, because as Balderson bowls, everyone in the Lancashire field is programmed, if there isn't an actual wicket, to yell out as though it was very, very close to one.
In perfect harmony as well.
Yes.
Balderson to Cushy, what comes back into him, and he defends back down the pitch. There's no run.
He did very well to keep that one out. Kept low, and the ball was under him, and he really did excel himself. And one thing I have noticed about Cushy, it's not as if he's got a sensational average or anything like that. He's fairly new to the first-class game, but he does watch the ball carefully.
Balderson from the river end comes over the wicket. It's defended out towards backward point where Croft fields. There's no run.
I think the dismissal that would irk Essex, and hopefully the batsman himself a little bit, would be Dan Lawrence, because to sort of push so strongly at the first ball you've received and send it very crisply into short mid-wicket's hands, as I say, I mean, for a top-class player, you expect a little bit more care than that.
Balderson to Cushy, off the back foot and drives into the offside. One bounce into the hands of Rob Jones on the field at extra cover, and there's no run. So 5 dot balls to start the first over after lunch. Of course, the hat-trick was part of a maiden, so a triple wicket maiden for Balderson. Cook and Lawrence and Critchley all departing. Well, it's brought Lancashire back into the match. They need 6 more wickets. It's 64 more runs needed for Essex. Cushy into it, onto the front foot, leaning forward, defending, bat in front of his pad. And the ball deflects up to mid-off, and there's no run. That completes the first over of the afternoon session. 34 for 4, and Balderson starts with a maiden.
Yeah, he's still got, all his overs have been maidens. One of them a 3-wicket one. So 3 for none, and we thought Snater was going well, you know, with his 4 for 6 and his 6 for 10, which were his final figures from 8 overs and 2 maidens. Now, Sam Cook wasn't at his best, I didn't think, today from the Hayes close end, and was relatively expensive. He took 3 for 46 in 11 overs. Well, that's over 4 and over, and normally goes an under 2 and over. Still terrific bowler, but it was Snater who stole the headlines in this Lancashire second innings. And without his contribution, the game would already be over, and Lancashire, I'm pretty sure, would have won. As it is, they may well do. 64 more needed. About the one thing you could say for Essex, they're used to these nail-biting finishes. They've twice won by one wicket this season, and we're seeing
Will Williams.
Will Williams, thank you very much. Now as he comes in from the Hayes close end and bowls to Wesley, whips it off the pads, and that's probably going to bring 2. They've taken 1 though. They decide against a good bit of fielding to get to the ball very quickly there from Balderson, and certainly I felt that Will Williams, who bowled so well from the top end, the Hayes close end yesterday, didn't quite get the line and length sorted out today from the river end, so now he's back at what one would infer is probably his preferred end, and that one actually did stray onto leg stump. Let's see what he does with this one too. Feroz Kushi, and bowls him, and that knocks the off stump flat, and well, it has worked. He has proved that he looks a lot happier bowling from the Hayes close end as Essex decline to 35 for 5. Kushi makes his way disconsolately from the field for 1. And a great start for Lancashire, and I have to say, as was the case at Headingley a week ago when Essex won by 1 wicket, they only started to have a chance of reaching the target when the lower order came in and batted with far less fear.
Which is what they're going to have to do again, as Kushi makes his way back towards the pavilion. 35 for 5. First wicket to fall after lunch. Bizarre game of cricket we've been witness to over the course of the day and a bit.
Good wicket for Lancashire to get that, because Kushi showed in the first innings that he isn't afraid to play his shots if he gets the right ball, and the virtue of that good bit of fielding by Balderson at long leg a moment or two ago is shown by Kushi rather than Wesley being on strike, because they only got a single instead of 2. Of course you can argue, well, perhaps Williams would have got Wesley out instead, and we'll never know on that particular score. But 35 for 5, and Essex now have declined from 24 for none to 35 for 5. Just the 1 slip and a gully, the attacking field, as Lancashire want to cut off things like edges that might go for 4. But of course, you can't have men everywhere, and it does mean that the ball could fly through the large gap between the first slip, and in fact the gullies come more into where 3rd or 4th slip would be, as Williams is in over the wicket to Rossington, who can be fairly relied on not to die wondering, however brief his stay might be. 35 for 5, 63 from victory for Essex. 5 wickets needed by Lancashire, and if they get the second 5 as readily as they have the first 5, then they are the more likely winner, or they will be the winner, as Williams is on this way again. Bowls, and here's a clout from Rossington, and he's pulled it away to the square leg fence for 4 runs, and 39 for 8. He has 4, and as I say, he may not last long, but someone has got to hoik Essex if they're going to win the game, and that was a hoik, into a position where they got some sort of chance.
Absolutely,
because so often this season on the pitches that haven't been feather beds, all right, Essex have got bags of runs on feather beds. On the non-feather beds, the middle order has so often just disintegrated. As here is the next ball, and it's edged down and nicely stopped there. Is that Keaton Jennings?
No, it is, Jennings.
Oh, it is, right. So good stop by him. Thank you. And, well, to give you an example, anyone can sort of say, I've watched them collapse and so on, but let's take Edgbaston. 3rd game of the season. This was following Essex just getting home chasing 84 at Taunton the game before to win by 1 wicket. And they collapsed from 98 for 2 to 109 for 7 in 20 minutes. And that was the middle order, as I said, disintegrating. This ball's hit back past the bowler, there's no run there, and the score is 39 for 5, target 98, another 59 needed. the end of a successful over for Williams, who bowled Cushy for 1. And it has to be said, you can't always blame the pitch. Maybe you can here, maybe 1 or 2 other places you could, like Taunton. But there are other occasions when too many guys come in and are soon on their way back for single-figured scores.
It's a good switch that, wasn't it, to bring Williams into the attack from that far end. Sensible.
Very much so. I thought he might have done that before lunch, actually, but because, of course, Balderson came on and immediately took a hat-trick, literally immediately.
He did, yeah. Yeah, it was his first over into the attack. So he's going to continue from the river end. And he bowls, wraps onto the pad. Just kind of watching it live, Paul. Not sure if that felt just right. Umpire, more importantly, didn't think that was right either.
You put that perfectly, because it was well worth an appeal, but I felt that it failed on 2 counts actually. It was an off cutter, so it might have gone past the leg stump, and the other thing, I think height might have been a factor. Good ball. He doesn't bowl many bad ones, this fella.
He hasn't today, no. He's contributed really well this season, particularly with the ball. He's left by Wesley through to the keeper. There's no run. He's been up and down the order a little bit. He's opened the batting previously for Lancashire in first-class cricket, and he runs a little harder for him to come by this year in the county championship. But being the all-rounder gives you that brilliant chance of having 2 goes at making an impact in the game. And it's not worked with the bat. He's contributed with the ball. It's wide and left by Wesley and taken by Bell.
Well, skipper could do with, if nothing else, of staying there certainly, because it is easier for those around him to throw the bat a little bit. Wesley, I'm sure, feels a bit more of a sense of responsibility, as in sort of, I better not try that, whereas the likes of Rossington and Snater will say, right, here we go then.
Slipping a gully in place. Balderson to Wesley. That's driven up towards mid-on. It's kind of reaching for it to try and push it through the covers. In the end, ball deflects off the inner half of the bat.
Yeah, it wasn't where he was aiming, that's for sure. And as you rightly indicate, he wasn't to the pitch enough for it to go where he was hoping to send it.
Villas fielding there at mid-on for Lancashire. The captain polishing the ball, handing it back to his young bowler. Wesley plays forward and defends. Again, Villas fields. Again, there's no run.
Wesley, a player with a leg side bias, but I've also seen him play some of the most glorious off and cover drives in his time. He was very much more expansive as a batsman in the days when Essex were in Division 2, and I don't think the change is principally because this is a tougher division.
Keeper crouching down behind the stumps. Wesley wakes, Balderson is in. That is flicked away to fine leg. Just across his pads, it'll glance down towards Parkinson on the fine leg boundary. Wesley gets a single. Keeps a strike as well, it completes the over. Wesley moves on to 9. Essex are 40 for 5. Need 58 more runs for a victory.
Having been 24 for no wicket, and 5 wickets have fallen between 24 and 35. Balderson claiming 3 of them. Bailey 1, Williams 1. It's been a good attack, medium pace attack from Lancashire. They have 3 spin options, but I don't think we're necessarily going to see much sign of any of them.
Probably not, no.
Well, Williams has reached the top of his run up from the Hayes close end, where he seems to bowl better than from the river end. And he bowls now, and this has taken the batsman on the pad. Big appeal, but there was significantly little backup appeal there from the surrounding fielders, and I think it probably would have faded down leg side. Richard Kettleborough, the umpire at Hayes close end, has had a summer that has entitled him to status as one of the best umpires in the world, because so many of the referrals in his direction totally exonerated his original decision in the test series over the fantastic summer we've enjoyed. Williams is in, bowls to Wesley, hits him in the groin, and again it's just the bowler really appealing on his own there. But He's bowling thoroughly well, let it be said.
Yeah, the switch of ends worked a treat for him. I mean, you start after lunch, you kind of want to get him. Denver last may well have been tempted to start with Bailey. He's always going to keep Alderson on, clearly, at this end, but he might have been tempted to go with Bailey from that far end. But he's given Williams a chance. He didn't bowl too well from this river end. It's worked a treat for him so far. He's responded beautifully.
Nice to have Bailey up his sleeve,
Yeah,
metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
As here is Williams in. Bowls to Wesley. Defends to mid-wicket. And Bailey himself fields, and there's no run.
You think that this is a type of situation that would suit Williams, actually, with the keeper standing up and then his ability just to consistently bowl quite tight and wicket to wicket and aiming top of off stump. He's done that so many times since signing for Lancashire a couple of months back. His accuracy, and just kind of keep it there, and at some point you'd expect the pitch to help him out.
Williams to Wesley. Forces off the back foot, goes down to mid-off, but never the hint of a run there. Bohannon fields and score 40 for 5, target 98 to win. There are 9 to Wesley, 4 to Rossington, and brilliant hat-trick by Balderson about 20 minutes before lunch, completely put Lancashire, in the short term at any rate, in the driving seat as Essex slumped from 24 for no wicket to 25 for 4 as this ball is played away by Wesley. He's going to get at least one run out to deep mid-wicket, and they're going to come back for 2. Rossington was the man who had the call because the shorter throw was to the bowler's end. He had to make it to non-striker's end and duly did so. Wesley was waiting for a little moment or two on his partner's call, but I think there always were going to be 2 there. Fieldsman had a good 35 yards to make to get there from square leg to mid-wicket. 42 for 5, and Wesley moves up to 11. Williams in. Bowls to Wesley, and Wesley drives at this, misses. Ball rebounds off the pads of the excellent George Bell, and we've seen both wicket-keepers put in fantastic performances here, standing up to deliveries which were pretty quick and above all unpredictable, because that's been the word to describe the pitch here. It's been unpredictable. One ball might get up quite sharply, another might grub, another might just come through in the expected path, but if enough of them behave eccentrically, then the normal can be the one that gets a batsman out. The one that does behave what would normally have been predictably can become the lethal delivery. So Rossington is preparing to take strike for the first time to Balderson, who comes in from the river end. Bowls, and Rossington plays this with assurance to Stephen Croft in his usual perch at backward point. Floodlights are still on. It's been nothing like the day that was forecast. This was meant to be a day when we'd all feel a lot warmer and we'd all be able to get an amplification to a suntan, but we've scarcely seen the sun at all. Although at the moment conditions are quite bright overhead, there's a very dark and sombre bank of cloud. Not that I think it's going to rain. Away to our left, Balderson bowls, and Sanderson has lofted this, and it's either 4 or 6. And I'm just waiting for confirmation. It's 4. The ball comes down in front of us and it disappears from our view. The riverside stand balcony stretching before us obscures the view. It was always going to be a tight one, that, but it just bounces before crossing the line, to Rossington's disappointment, and he has 8. And Essex are 46 for 5. They now need 52 to win. And that's the first real blow in anger from the bowling of Balderson, who in fact hadn't conceded a run before this over. Been absolutely brilliant. 4.2 overs, 3 maidens, 3 for 5 as Balderson runs into bowl to Rossington. Played back to the bowler. Yes, technically I think he had just conceded a single in his first 4 overs, but wasn't that he bowled a bad ball to Rossington. Rossington is very much a man, as you will have seen if you watched his performances in the 100, where he got that lightning fast 50, that he likes to go after the bowling. And in a sense, although he may fail in that enterprise, Essex needs somebody to take the chance, and try and hit the ball over the top. Here's the next delivery, played extremely watchfully and extremely well by Rossington as it kept low, but his head was right over the ball, and he had already sussed that that wasn't a ball to take on and defended it. Paul Newton here with Scott Reed of BBC Radio Manchester, and Nick Gledhill, my colleague from BBC Essex, will be joining us again at 1:40. Balderson in, balls to Rossington, and he's cleaned him out. Another stump lies flat to the ground, and I'm afraid Rossington had shown such good judgment to the previous ball, decided that this one was just the ball to repeat his hit over the top earlier in the over. And rather as he did at Headingley, he departs having made a few when a few was not nearly enough. 46 for 6, and Essex is still not halfway to their target. On last Wednesday at Headingley, they were 64 for 6, and then staged. They wanted rather more to win that day. They needed 162, and as most people will be aware, they actually got there to win by 1 wicket. They don't have Ben Allison to call on this occasion, though, and he played a key role as Simon Harmer makes his way to the middle, and Balderson has his 4th victim, that of Adam Rossington, whose 2 scoring shots were both boundaries. We haven't seen many from anyone else for a long time now. I do feel that Essex invite problems onto them by being so defensive, and if it worked, that would be fine, but it hasn't been working. And there are a fair number of their top order batsmen who are looking at a bit of an embarrassing list of single-figured scores, with exceptions. Essex did have a very good time down at Canterbury, where they got 560 odd. Just about everybody scored runs, with the ironic exception there of Dan Lawrence, who, from memory, I think he only got 9. Cushy got 164, but whole side scores, well, Essex, with the 2 innings put together, may not be going to reach 164 in this match. Dane Villas just having a chat with George Balderson. Not totally sure what the delay is here. Simon Harmer's already out in the middle. Whether we're going to have 1 or 2 closer fielders, I don't know. Not quite sure what we're waiting for, but people now are getting back to their position. Scott Reed will very, very shortly rejoin me. Harmer, who played well in the first innings, although I say well, I mean he only made 10, but he was playing well. They don't half need, Essex don't half need him to make rather more than that now, because they're in a real spot here. 24 for no wicket has pretty quickly become 46 for 6. And I did predict from the word go that if they won at all, it would be by a hair's breadth and in a nail-biting finish. Here's Balderson into Harmer. Gets everything behind this, plays it down to the skipper at mid-on, Dane Villas, and there is no run. Wesley, the skipper, has 11. Harmer, with the number 11 on his back, yet to score. 46 for 6 leaves Essex needing a further 52 to win.
First career 4-wicket haul for George Balderson. I was just double checking that. I think that's true. I don't think he's picked up 4 wickets in first class cricket before. And he can't keep out of the he can't keep out of the action, can he? He's having some day with the ball.
Brilliant. And well, it's been a bowler's game, it does have to be said, but he's acquitted himself thoroughly well.
Here's Williams running in and balls, and Wesley plays off the front foot, defending into the offside, no run. 46 for 6 into the afternoon session on day 2.
And the final session of the match for sure, and only the weather actually, or some sort of protest group invading the pitch could stop this ending this session.
Don't mention protest groups when Lancashire are concerned.
Oh right, sorry, apologies.
We tried to gloss over that. Keeper crouching Keeper crouching down. Williams is in and bowls. And oh, that's a good ball that beats that little forward push from Wesley. Taken by Bell.
Quick email from Michael Alexander, and we may have covered it before lunch, but he was saying Test match 4 days and county cricket three days. It's the only answer, and his point would be the only answer to this problem of the overcrowding of the schedule since we had a fourth competition. And just a bit of a gap between
Hard to argue against that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, not at all. I'll come to that after the sport.
It's Williams running in. Wesley waits. He's over the wicket to Wesley. That's come off the inner half of the bat, just squirts away behind square on the leg side. Balderson comes up to field, gets a run. Score moves on to 47 for 6.
We hear from Edward Emond, who says, is it worth putting Snater up the order today, given he seems to be able to score quickly and is in better form than Rossington? Of course, he sent the email before Rossington was out. Hard to judge performances on this pitch, but will Essex be disappointed with Critchley's return this season, given the start he had? Well, there's no denying you have a point there. He did get a 90 at Canterbury, but then so did most other people as well, you know. So on the more difficult pitches, he's not been coming up trumps.
Williams bowls. And Harmer just turned around a little by Williams, but gets right in behind it. Defends up to mid-on.
Essex's problem is that if we're going to sort of highlight Critchley's lack of runs recently, well, you have to say the trouble is it wouldn't matter, you know, if 3 or 4 other people were getting bagfuls of runs, but they're not. And you can sort of look at the whole top order really and say, well, he's not bad, but so-and-so, so-and-so and so-and-so have been in a poor trot.
47 for 6. Appeal for LBW as Harmer looks to try and work it to the leg side. Ball deflects away out to square leg. I think the umpire was in position to signal as a leg by had they gone to that.
Yes, Richard Kettleborough there. I think probably ruling that the ball would have beaten leg stump. It was just beginning to, and of course the way the batsman shaped to play the ball suggested that. But there are umpires who would have given it.
1 ball remaining of this current over. Williams just dropping Hartley back towards the square leg boundary from, and there's a long leg as well, short mid wicket. Punched into the offside by Harmer. Gets a quick single actually. Parkinson coming to his left from mid off to field. The ball loses his cap in pursuit of it. Harmer does nick 1 and the strike. And that's the end of the over. So Harmer off the mark with that.
Yeah,
Essex are 48 for 6.
Good bit of cricket from Harmer, because I think he watched his fielder there. Parkinson wouldn't be the most agile of the fielders. He had to run round the ball. He made absolutely sure he stopped it, which was the most important thing. But I think there are fielders in the Lancashire side who, if they'd been fielding where Parkinson was, Harmer might well have said, oh, he's a bit quick for me, because Harmer himself is not lightning between the wickets. So 48 for 6, and a further 50 now needed by Essex as Balderson is preparing to do battle with Harmer, who's just checking his guard, and in comes Balderson. Balls to Harmer, who's edged it for 4. It was not going to have been a catch, as it was, went between wicketkeeper and a rather wide slip. So now Essex at last are past 50 and past halfway to their target. 52 for 6, requiring a further 46 to win. And Harmer goes up to 5, Wesley at the non-strikers end 12. Michael Alexander asks the question, do we need AFL County Championship cricket at all? Let's start one of the one-day competitions then. Surely the months of May, June and July should be sacrosanct, with a game or two alongside the 100, nurturing the talent already introduced to the 50-over competition, and the denouement, a truncated September. The season should not go beyond mid-September and ideally completed by mid-September, and intense county cricket matches back-to-back, testing fitness and resolve, a good old-fashioned grind. And yes, Mr. Strauss, a radical switch to 3-day county cricket to accompany 4-day tests. Thank you very much, Michael. Thought-provoking as ever. And there's just, you're not missing anything while I'm reading that email out. There was a long conflab there. But, in fact, to know, I was just about to say, and Balderson is now on his way again, which he was, but he pulls out halfway through, and it may be that Harmer had spotted that someone was moving in the field. But whatever the reason, Balderson, who can't be on bad terms with himself. 5.1 over 3 maidens, 4 for 9, is now eager to come in again. 52 for 6. That goes through outside off stump, and no need for a shot there from Harmer. And one thing Harmer has got, Scott, is plenty of experience, and one or two of the Essex players perhaps have played shots they needn't have done. Harmer on the whole is more likely to realise certain deliveries he doesn't need to play at.
You spoke to him last night, didn't you, Simon?
I did.
Harmer? What was his kind of view on the first day?
Come back to that, but here's Balderson bowls. That's another lead. His view was that actually he felt there'd been a lot of poor batting, as well as the question marks over the pitch, which he obviously realised there were. But his point, and of course he was talking about batsmen from both sides, was that several were pretty culpable of getting themselves out. I think the point is that I would say is that once the ball behaves erratically, then sometimes just an ordinary straight ball that doesn't do anything can get you out, because you don't trust it anymore, as this ball is played back to the bowler, who doesn't field it, but Villas does behind him. No run, 52 for 6, but perhaps his most interesting point of all was the one that he felt that batting under the floodlights in the gloaming yesterday evening did for Alistair Cook, who in ordinary daylight conditions had looked very comfortable, and did for so many of the Lancashire top order as well. Here's Balderson in, bowls to Harmer. Harmer plays it back to the bowler. There's no run there, and the score is 52 for 6. And one point I would just make, I sometimes feel that we're almost too anxious to get every possible over in. When you're talking about a game finishing in the middle of day 2, when conditions aren't ideal, might it not have been an idea to say, let's come back tomorrow? Here is Balderson in, bowls to Harmer. Harmer forces off the back foot. It's a lovely shot. May not quite have the legs to get to the boundary. It won't do. But they've taken 2, and I think Harmer's game for a 3rd here. He's on his way now. 3 runs, 55 for 6. Another 43 needed for Essex to win. 4 wickets for Lancashire to win. That was the end of a rather more expensive Balderson over. 6 over 3 maidens, 4 for 12, though. It highlights what a brilliant effort he's made. And I will make way for Nick Cleverhill.
Yeah, 7 runs off that one from Balderson. Nice shot off the back foot, punched away by Harmer through the covers. So it was certainly a point I probably tried and failed to make eloquently yesterday. I was a bit surprised that we were still playing. I mean, bad light is subjective. What one umpire views to be sufficient light, another one would view to be poor. So you can. I think there was a degree of, look, the pitch isn't great, the light isn't great. We were only playing because the floodlights were on. Maybe I think the sensible decision last night was to go off, and without, and perhaps wouldn't have got the reaction that we've had overnight had that happened. Here's Williams in, edged, taken. Wells at first slip. It's a beauty from Williams. Harmer with the edge through to the keeper. And Luke Wells takes a catch to his left-hand side, just about waist high. That's a lovely delivery sent down by Will Williams. And the ball just doing enough off this unpredictable pitch and nibbling away and finding the outside edge. And it's 7 down now, 55 for 7. It's still 43 more runs required for the home side to win the match. And Lancashire are within 3 wickets of what would be quite a remarkable victory for them if they were to get it, having been 7 for 6 yesterday evening.
Would like to see a replay of that, Scott. I thought that was a sensational catch. I really did, because it was just going away from him. He had to adjust. It was a brilliant take at slip. And yes, they're getting the wickets, often enough here, Lancashire, aren't they? 55. Well, obviously, Snater coming in. This is a big moment. Wesley in danger of being stranded. This is the game, really. You feel if they can break this next partnership quickly. Yes, Cook, we don't know obviously about Porter. He was off the field for a while, but Cook can hang around. But the thing about Snater, obviously, can score quickly, and I wonder if he is going to try and put bat to ball here and take a bit of a chance. Now, those who've done that so far have succeeded momentarily and then got out. For example, Rossington. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what Wesley is talking about there with Snater, but I'd love to see a replay of that, because my impression was that was a very, very good catch indeed.
I think it was. It went to Wells at left-hand side.
Yes.
The keeper standing up. It was a thin edge off the bat. It went to Wells' left. He'd have seen it pretty late with the keeper right up behind the stump. So I agree, Nick. I think that was a fabulous catch from Luke Wells.
Could be a big moment as well, because you just get the impression there that Harmer was sort of nicely in control of things with his experience that Paul was referring to, and that's a breakthrough that Lancashire would be delighted with. Obviously, they know that the skipper's still there, but he's starting to run out of partners.
Yeah, Wesley's on
issue
12.
for Wesley now. He's got to try and take control of this on 12, and he's just got 3 more partners left potentially.
12 from 36 deliveries. He's stuck in there, hasn't he, Wesley? But maybe a change of approach, perhaps. Snater's on strike. Williams in. Balls! He's bowled him! He's on a hat-trick as well, Will Williams. The off-stump's out the ground. 8 down now, Essex. Lancashire sense a sensational victory, needing 2 more wickets, and the home side require 43 to win. And it's Snater gone. First ball from Williams, 55 for 8.
Well, to introduce a cross-pennine element into this, Scott, I think it was 4 years ago that Yorkshire played a match here, were bowled out for 50, I think it was in their first innings, and won the game. So we could have a situation here where Lancashire have a completed innings of 73 and win the game, which is going to be, something that'll go into the record books, I think, because it doesn't happen that often. They are clear favourites now, Lancashire. Will Williams, a sensational delivery. I think he's deserved that. And isn't it amazing how much more effective he's been from the Hayes Close? I mean, he was just having a little bit of a problem, obviously not familiar with the ground, with the river end and his approach from that. Not that he bowled badly, but he's looked much more like his old self from the first innings in this spell. And 55 for 8, and now Wesley really does have to take control out there as best he can. Interestingly, we did have an email from Edmund saying, is it worth putting Snater up the order today, given he seems to be able to score more quickly, he's better form than Rossington. Yes, I suppose he might have done better if he'd gone up the order, but it wasn't to be Snater's day today. And you also allude to the fact that Critchley's returns in the championship with the bat have been a little bit disappointing. Not in the blast, of course, but thanks for that, Edmund. Wow, another hat-trick for you, Scott. No, you can't have 2 in a day. Really, that's overdoing it.
It would be, wouldn't it? Sam Cook on strike. Here's Williams, hat-trick ball in and balls. Oh, it's come off an edge. He's gone past the stumps. He's disappeared down towards fine leg. It might even go for 4. No, it's been picked up. They'll come back for 2. Goodness me. Little edge flashing away past the stumps. And down to the boundary. Good work by Balderson to stop the ball reaching the rope, and they get 2 for it.
Well, we've got school children again today, as we did yesterday, because every time there's a boundary, anything that goes Essex's way, which isn't a lot at the moment, they're quite vocal. So if you hear any 4s, you'll hear some loud cheers for that. Who says it's only pensioners that watch Championship cricket? It's good to have the youngsters in.
57 for 8. Williams to Cook, just leans forward and defends out towards the onside. Slowly the ball rolls up to the Lancashire captain, Dame Villas, at mid-on. Penny for his thoughts. He's got Balderson and Williams bowling in tandem at the minute. Balderson's bowled since lunch. Williams likewise. At what stage does he look to make a change? Does he keep them both on at the minute? You'd be tempted to do just that. Just keep going with these 2.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Bailey's had a pretty good game with the ball as well.
3 slips in place. Williams over the wicket. And Sam Cook punches up to mid-on, but for no run.
Yeah, Lancashire have actually realised you didn't need more than 3 seamers on this surface, and picked a nicely balanced side. Of course, Essex had the problem that they lost Jamie Porter to injury. Although it's fair to say that 73 all out, you wouldn't say that it particularly had an impact, but certainly, there was always a reserve seamer up the captain's sleeve here.
Williams for Lancashire in and bowls, and Cook plays and misses. And taken by George Bell. It's the end of the over. 2 wickets in the over for Will Williams. He's got 3 for 24 now. Essex are 57 for 8. Need 41 more runs to win.
Michael, your comment that you made, Championship cricket in April, that could be replaced by the one day cup. But you're saying that you don't really favour the season going beyond mid-September, and they say it always seems to be that last week of September the weather seems to deteriorate. So I do remember a quite stunning T20 finals day at Edgbaston, I think about September the 20th, just before the famous Taunton game in 2019. But yeah, so if you were going to play 4 rounds of Championship cricket in September, it wouldn't half help starting before September the 5th. And I think there is a way of doing it. I think you can start a few days earlier if you really put your mind to it when the 100 is down to 3 franchises. But thanks for that, Mike, and we wait to see what the counties agree and their discussions on the Strauss review. And Colin says this match has demonstrated excellent consistency from the pitch and it's providing equal responses from both teams throughout. And of course, additionally, of providing more opportunities for Essex to repeat their own legendary history of collapses. What exactly is being sought by way of physical changes in the pitch? Well, that's going to be an issue for the autumn, I think. Here is Balderson, who continues from the river end, and that's on the pads as a stifled appeal for LBW. 57 for 8. We had a 57 in this round of games. Hampshire made 57 all out at the GS Bowl. Now here, Essex has got to find another 41 runs from the last 2 wickets, and clearly Tom Wesley there on 12. Well, if he can see his side through to victory here, it's going to be some achievement on this pitch. But clearly he's absolutely crucial now. Yeah, so you're talking about the pitches, Colin. I very much agree that it's a key issue for Essex next season. I remember the song lyric, "Me, I go from one extreme to the other." I think it was an ABC song lyric, but it's a bit like the Essex pitches. That's been the case this season, really. You've got to name the ABC song now. Balderson up to the wicket, bowls, and in the end played away okay down towards deep backward point, but Wesley doesn't take the single.
Turns it down.
Interesting. 41. Now 41 can be a long way away with that tactic. That's interesting. So he really is taking control out there. Wesley, he's going to turn down singles. 57 for 8. And and you're talking, Colin saying, why not go back out to the outgrounds and you might get some sort of harder and more, pitches at a more even contest between bat and ball. Interesting thought. 57 for 8 as Balderson bowls, and this is played defensively by Wesley and watchfully up into the offside. It was 24 for no wicket, and then Balderson with his 2nd, 3rd and 4th deliveries taking an outstanding hat-trick. Cook, Lawrence, Critchley, Feroz Kushi going just after lunch. And they've been chipping away really ever since. To the extent that Lancashire, you feel, should win the game from here. And Balderson up to the wicket, bowls and driven away nicely, crisply off the pads. He does take the single this time. That was the 4th ball of the over. Wesley will go to 13, 58 for 8. If Lancashire do win, obviously it's not certain yet, but they are now favourites. I suppose Glenn Chappell will have a very positive spin on the team's performance, because they've had to deal with this as Essex have had to, but it's a win for Lancashire here, and making that first innings lead of 24 count in the end would be some achievement, Scott, given what they've been up against, the nature of the pitch and the high quality Essex attack as well.
He would, yeah. That would be a remarkable effort, wouldn't it? It'd be a great turnaround.
So Balderson with 2 slips, bowls, and this is glided down by Cook for a single. That's interesting because it puts Wesley under pressure to get a run off the last ball here, because that's the 5th ball of the over. So 59 for 8, the target 98. So Wesley's going to be looking for a single, and obviously Villas senses here that he wants to try and keep Cook at the striking end for the start of the next over.
Yeah, Will Williams will fancy 6 balls at Sam Cook.
Yeah, so we've got a ring of 1 savers here, 4 on the offside, 3 on the leg side. There is a gap at fine leg as this is hit uppishly and caught. Good catch too. Low at cover. Croft there judged that very well. It was a loose stroke by Wesley, who was just sensing that he needed to get a run, and in the end he hit it uppishly, and Croft in the covers there. That was low to the ground, and but he got his hands underneath it and took it well. It's 59 for 9, and Lancashire on course here for a famous win.
Well, it's stunning day, a couple of days of cricket. I'm struggling to find something different to say, other than it's been an extraordinary day and a half of cricket. I mean, it's produced an absolutely bonkers match, hasn't it? Really.
Yeah. It's,
I mean, Lancashire was 7 for 6 in their second innings.
yeah, and that's, you know, when you think back at the shock for Lancashire fans listening to us, maybe the sense of embarrassment, were they going to get 12, could it be, one of the worst days in their history with a bat? And to come back from that is some achievement, because Lancashire, let's be absolutely honest here, had the worst period of the game to bat in. That was yesterday evening. Essex actually obviously had a little bit of that, and Cook was going well and he was out on 40, and then the rest of the innings fell away quite quickly.
5 wickets for George Balderson as well.
Excellent stuff from him. He's sort of almost trading blow for blow with Snater, 5 for 14 and against 6 for 10. Not a bad effort. Now we've got consultation with the umpires. Porter is there with a runner. I think. Let's have a look.
It's a good shout. Yeah.
Is it a runner?
It is a runner, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he didn't take to the field, did he, earlier
on?
No. I wonder whether Lancashire were half wondering whether or not he would actually be fit enough to come out and bat, but clearly, well, he's not fit enough to do it without some help.
No. It's Dan Lawrence who probably fancies a bit more time at the crease. But Lancashire will be watching very carefully to make sure Lawrence doesn't take any of the strike here. I wonder if that's ever happened, the runner suddenly taken strike thinking the fielding side weren't looking. 59 for 9.
39 more runs.
Wow.
For Essex, 1 more wicket for Lancashire. Goodness.
And that was the end of the over, so over to you. It's a 5 for 14 Balderson, 59 for 9.
Yeah, Will Williams starts a fresh over in, and bowls, and Cook defends to mid-on, and there is no run. 5 for George Balderson. His maiden first class 5 wicket haul. There's been a few moments in the match that certain players will remember. A debut for George Bell in a utterly bonkers game of cricket. Hat-trick for Balderson, first 5 wicket haul for him as well. Snater's figures. There's Williams over the wicket, balls to Cook. Bowled in! Lancashire have won the game. Williams peels away in celebration. It is the most remarkable turnaround. Lancashire have bowled Essex out for 59 to win the match in extraordinary circumstances. What a turnaround in this game of cricket. Lancashire were 7 for 6 in their second innings yesterday, in torrid conditions for batting, and have somehow managed to turn it around on the final day to bowl the home side out for 59. It is a famous win for Lancashire, which seemed almost impossible when we started at 10:30 this morning. All out, setting a target of 98 for the home side to win. 98 was enough. Lancashire bowled Essex out for 59. A 5 for Williams, 4 wickets for Williams, a 5 for Balderson, and a quite unique game of cricket comes to an end. A victory by 38 runs for Lancashire.
Wow, so that's going to put a different complexion on it for Glenn Chappell, who actually in his mind, I wonder, up in the balcony, was thinking back to that 20 all out just a few years ago that he was involved in. Shades of that really in what's happened since the opening partnership was broken. 59 all out, a fabulous performance by Lancashire, because they had the worst of the batting conditions, where it looked like Essex had blown them away yesterday evening. Just little small details though. You think about even that innings by George Bell at the end yesterday, just to get the score up to 25, and the contributions from the lower order this morning, Scott, to add a useful 48 runs. Okay, 73 all out. As I say, it joins the list of with Yorkshire of sides who've won a game with a sub-100 total. It's not a very frequent occurrence, and all credit for Lancashire for doing that. And handshakes between the sides. But if nothing else comes from this, it will. I think the minds for Essex have been focused already, but obviously they need more batting consistency next season, but they need help from the pitch in terms of producing an even contest between bat and ball. And number one priority for next season is to make sure there's a surface here which does provide that consistently, because, as I say, it has been a season of extremes here, and in the end, a rare Essex defeat at Chelmsford, and there haven't been many of those in recent years, but a brilliant performance by Lancashire. 5 for 14 Balderson, 3 for 24 Williams. In the end, Bailey, who did so well in the first innings with 5 for 36. What a complete performance by those three, and a brilliant performance indeed by Lancashire. We'll just stay on the air for a few more minutes. We did have a few emails come in that I was going to try and get to, but they were sort of running out of time. Michael, thank you for your email about the comments on the coverage. You say you particularly enjoyed the Somerset Championship game on a very, very different pitch, and the contributions of Anthony Gibson, who'll be a little bit more pleased with Somerset's efforts in this current game as they try and keep themselves in the division. Mike is saying that a lamentable effort by the batsmen, often too cautious, handing initiative to the bowlers, or too hasty, some not playing themselves in. The batters seem sometimes to be stuck in T20 mode and forgetting cricketing in good sense. Thanks for your comments on the commentary. Edward, you admit that, about Snater, you wanted Snater promoted. The scoreboard should read Snater bowled Williams, and you say what a remarkable game this has been. And Paul, thanks very much indeed for your final comments. And you say come on Essex, but that's a bit unfortunately too late now. And you did say that it wasn't going to be easy for Essex, but at the time you sent the email, you say it wasn't so sure, and it's got a lot worse since then. But thank you to everyone who has sent emails to us over the last day and a half. What have we got left? Well, Lancashire, of course, have got Surrey, and it could be that Surrey are already champions, because Kent have got a lead of over 300 now against Hampshire, and if Kent win and beat Hampshire and Surrey beat Yorkshire, it's all over. And to be honest, Yorkshire now at 67 for 4 in reply to Surrey's 333. I've got a feeling it's going to be all over in this round of games. Surrey have taken some important wickets just recently, with the wickets being shared around. In fact, they've just had Tom Laws come in and take 2 for 13 in quick time, and Yorkshire now struggling at 68 for 4. Could well be a 22-point win that for Surrey, and Hampshire are going to have to get over 300 to stay in contention. Kent 196 for 6, and Jack Leaning I think has got over, he's 71 not out, and I think Kent possibly batting Hampshire out of that game and batting them out of contention for the championship. Just looking around elsewhere, one or two of the significant games. Somerset bowled out for 389. That's taken a long time to get those. Northants have just gone in, and in Division 2, I just mentioned a couple of those games in the promotion race in Division 2. Game we haven't mentioned today, actually not so struggling at 53 for 3 in reply to Worcestershire's 390 all out. Worcestershire just having a decent end to the season, but not surely have got enough in the tank to get promotion. Middlesex have Leicestershire 5 down with a lead of 198 at the moment at Grace Road. They should win that. And Glamorgan have declared at 550 for 5 against Derbyshire, and David Lloyd 313 not out with 4 sixes and 40 fours. So those are really the key games elsewhere. And here, well, what a day it has been, what a match it has been, on a pitch which has certainly attracted attention, offering variable bounce from the start. We've seen really an extraordinary game of cricket, where Lancashire's 131 turned out in the end to be the highest score of the game, and it brought them a lead of 24. And although they were 7 for 6 in their second innings, in the end that 24 proved to be really rather important. Lancashire 25 for 6 overnight, got up to 73. Actually, batting looked relatively comfortable for most of the morning until Balderson bowled that hat-trick over towards the end of the session. But some good efforts from George Bell, 24, also from Tom Hartley, 23, and Tom Bailey, even his 10 there was quite significant in just getting the score up to 73. Doesn't sound much, but it proved to be enough. It got a lead of 97, sending Essex 98 runs to win. Shane Snater with 6 for 10, and 3 wickets for Sam Cook, a wicket for Simon Harmer. Essex went in, and as looked the case really in the first innings of the match, Lancashire's first innings. Ball not doing much initially. Brown and Cook looking comfortable, got the score to 24. Brown was LBW value to Bailey, and then the critical phase really as George Balderson came on and took a hat-trick with his second, third and fourth deliveries, and 2 England players involved in that, with Cook bowled by Balderson for 14, Lawrence hitting his first ball straight to Williams at wide mid-wicket, and Critchley losing his off and middle stumps. So that was 28 for 4. Feroz Kushi came and went just after lunch. He was bowled by Williams for 1. Williams now switched to the Hayes close end, starting to look more effective than he had done earlier. The first of 4 more wickets for him. He claimed Harmer for 8, Snater for no score, and Cook for 3, with Rossington, after hitting a couple of 4s, bowled by Balderson for 8. Bailey 7 overs, no maidens, 1 for 16. Williams 8 overs and 2 balls, no maidens, 4 for 24. Balderson 7 overs, 3 maidens and 5 for 14. And a victory for Lancashire by 38 runs, with Essex set a target of 97. Well, they got over the line at Taunton, didn't they, with a wicket to spare, but they could easily have lost that one, and with a similar sort of target they've lost this one, and fairly emphatically. And it remains to be seen whether any further sanctions will be imposed because of the pitch, but even if they aren't, it is the number one issue for Essex to get sorted out for next season, so that they've got a more reliable surface here at Chelmsford in terms of the even match between bat and ball. So Lancashire have beaten Essex by 38 runs in this extraordinary game here at Chelmsford, and it means that Lancashire have certainly nailed down third place at least, and there's actually a chance that Lancashire could still finish second, because Hampshire might only take 3 bonus points from the game. They will be 19 points ahead of Lancashire. It's unlikely, but it's not impossible. So there's just an outside chance there for Lancashire, but they've gone to 201 points at the moment. Surrey moving along very nicely on 229, Hampshire on 220, but not likely to add many more from that. So Lancashire on 201, Essex on 181 with the completion of that match, and the game's down at the bottom, still going on. Warwickshire, Kent, Somerset involved. Say those games will continue possibly for the entire 4 days, and we'll see what happens with those. The scoreline we haven't mentioned, by the way, was Warwickshire 274 all out and Gloucestershire 146 for 5. Gloucestershire could be relegated in this round of games. So absolutely remarkable game here at Chelmsford. Thanks for listening over the last day and a half. So Scott will be with you next week with Mark Church, perhaps already celebrating a championship title for Surrey, or maybe they'll still need a few more points. We'll see. Commentary from Old Trafford next week. And well, at Northampton, where the weather forecast is equally as bad as at Old Trafford, whenever there is play, we'll be on the air. It will be a very different pitch to this one, I can assure you. Don Topley with you for the first couple of days. I'll be with you for the last couple to see out the season. And thanks ever so much for listening today. From myself, Nick Ledhill, from Scott Reed and Paul Newton, enjoy the rest of your afternoon.